Thank you, everyone, for joining us today for the Board of Trustees meeting of August 26th. If we could please start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So first we'll start with public comment. You can come on up to the podium here, introduce yourself, and feel free to line up too if there are multiple people that want to.
Good evening. My name's Marcia Gershenson. I'm one of the county commissioners that represents a portion of Bloomfield Township. And tonight I'm excited to announce a new program, actually two new programs that the county is involved in. One is a new medical debt relief project that can reduce or eliminate medical debt for Oakland County residents with qualifying income levels. 9% of adults in Oakland County have medical debt in collections, with medical debt being the leading cause of bankruptcy. The county has contracted with RIP Medical Debt, a 501c3 national charity that acquires and abolishes medical debt for people experiencing financial hardship. The county has allocated a one-time sum of $2 million to RIP Medical Debt, which could benefit 80,000 families in Oakland County and eliminate as much as $200 million in debt. These checks are scheduled to start being distributed in September. This will be posted on our website, which is oakgov.com, so you can follow the distribution. And along those lines, similar lines, the county has partnered with a company called Savi, S-A-V-I, to alleviate financial burdens of student debt for Oakland County residents. The Oakland County Student Debt Relief Initiative creates an innovative partnership with Savi to lower student loan payments. All residents will have access to these services with Savi at no cost. You can contact this company, and they have the data to try and find lower repayment programs through repayment options and/or forgiveness options. Today, Oakland County has approximately 172,000 residents who carry $6 billion in student debt. Information on how to apply will again be on our website, which is oakgov.com, and there will also be a dashboard where we can follow the progress. In addition, this is more for the administration, the DIA has announced applications for communities in Oakland County to participate in their Inside Out and public art mural programs for the 2025 calendar year. Inside Out brings high-quality reproductions of its world-class collection to outdoor venues throughout the county. The application is available, and it's on the DIA website. They also are starting a Partners in Public Art mural program. That's a collaboration between the DIA and the cities, villages, and townships. That application for a public mural is also on the DIA website. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. This information is all available on our website. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jim Tassin at 268 Marlboro Drive. The community has sent 2 emails to the Board of Trustees with our issues regarding the SPH water enhancement. We received only one response to one issue in which we found the answer ourselves. We request to be put on the Board of Trustees meeting agenda for tonight on September 9th. Both requests have been rejected. We wanted to have an open discussion with the Board of Trustees. This is township business. We need to have a discussion. After doing our research, SPH does not feel we should be funding a Bloomfield Township asset, such as the water extension. The township took over the following community wells and changed all water mains to the subs, thus setting a precedent. The villages on Westbourne, south of Maple, west of Cranbrook. Hickory Grove sub at Telegraph and Hickory Grove. Hickory Heights sub at Adams and Waddles. And last, Square Lake between Hickory Grove and Kensington. The township installed a water main down Bloomfield Boulevard at no cost to the residents. Why are we different? If the rules have changed, we need proof. This appears to be discrimination. Sewer lines were installed in the SPH sub in the early 70s. We were not assessed to cover that cost. SPH has been paying into the water/sewer system since the early 70s. The total amount in that fund is now approximately $34 million. Homer Case, a prior township supervisor, stated that we could connect any time in the future at no cost to the sub besides the connection fee. This project is not going to increase the value of homes. It will decrease the value. Water is a necessity. It is expected when you buy a home. Does the township have a plan to eliminate the homes with lower taxes by forcing the current owner to sell the home, resulting in higher property tax? Extending the township water system into the SPH sub benefits the township and the residents of SPH. Do what is right for the residents of SPH. Project, we feel, should be placed on a 90-day pause until these issues have been addressed by the township. To close, as a resident of SPH, I am planning on objecting the SAD to the Michigan Tax Tribunal, and I'm encouraging all residents to do the same of SPH. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Mike McCready, 4957 Bloomfield Ridge. I'm going to start with my second item, which takes off where Jim was talking, regard to the SAD. I think the township needs to pay for this, take it out of your water and sewer fund. There's money there to do it. And then that will alleviate a heavy burden to the residents where their homes average $250,000 to $500,000 in value. Also, there's going to be a connection fee, I understand, that they'd have to bear, which could be anywhere between $7,000 and $10,000. My suggestion there is the township bond for that, to pay for it. We bond for private roads. There's no reason why we can't bond for this and alleviate the problem. And I'm your former state representative, and when I was in office, we changed the law on SADs, and SADs now stay with the House. And I would like our municipal attorney maybe to do some homework on this to make sure it includes water and sewer. I know we did it for the roads. I wasn't sure if I got to go back and look myself. But if that is the case, if you're selling your home, and let's take an example of a woman I met when I was walking down their street, introducing myself to the neighbor. I'll call her Linda. Okay, Linda lives in a $300,000 ranch that needs new windows, needs help with her roof, and she has a daughter, an adult daughter, that needed some help, and she just retired from her job. She's on a fixed income. Now she's facing these burdens. Let's say Linda decided to sell her house for $300,000. She has to report in that sale that there's an SAD on that house, and that buyer, if they're doing their homework, is going to find that out. So we have just technically lowered the value of that home and the sale price for many of these people that may use that as their retirement savings. I think we better stop and think about that. Okay, Linda now is going to be in a value of a house, let's say it's 20% of the value, $240,000. If I'm the buyer, well, I've got obviously an opportunity to negotiate that price down. That's not fair. I don't think that's why we're here. We need to pay for this out of our water and sewer funds, and again, bond for the connection fees, and let's move forward and not burden the people in these homes that have saved up their whole life for this. That's the first thing. The second thing, I have to be quick here, is I know we're down on our first responders. I believe police is down anywhere between 5 and 10. I hear different numbers. I've looked at their compensation plan, and I've looked at their benefit package, basically their medical. The medical is not a good package, and on the compensation side, we're not even near competing. We're probably 10% lower than like communities. I see that you're going to make a change in the lateral. That means if someone moves over from another department, say Birmingham or Warren or somewhere else or Detroit, that they'll start at an equal level, where we haven't been doing that in the past, hopefully to get some recruitments. I don't understand why we can't get recruitments, because all the training schools are filled with candidates, and I hope we'd be into those candidate schools, maybe sponsoring or working with them so that they come to our community. I don't get that. But to be down this, and then you're going to make a lateral move, I believe this opens up the contract, and it needs to be reviewed by our labor attorney. And I'm all for opening it up and changing the benefit package to like communities, especially not just with compensation, but with medical. And that goes for every department within the township, because that's a reflection on the services that we're going to give to our residents. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jay Shah. I live at 3842 Wabeek Lake Drive with my wife Bharti. We've been township resident for 20 plus years. I'm here to request the board to include Wabeek Lake Drive East and West in the township safety path plan. As you know, the residents approved the safety path millage renewal recently in November 22. To that end, we want to be part of the program and request an opportunity for our safety path team present petition signed by 100 plus residents at a township board meeting. By the way, we thank Clerk Brook for his guidance in that regard to the petition. Many signers have commented on the safety concerns, not only for their children, but also their pets. As a matter of fact, a signer's dog was hit by a car not too long ago. I believe there is a sense of urgency among the voters in the North Wabeek community. Now, to quote the Supervisor Walsh from a newsletter regarding the safety paths, one of the very first safety path was installed in front of my home. Since then, the safety path network has expanded. End of quote. In the same vein, we want to be part of the expanded network and would like a path in front of our homes as well. The inclusion of the Wabeek safety path in the township program is supported by the township engineering director. We believe many of the trustees are supportive as well. Please let us know the date when we could get on the township board agenda to discuss detail and maybe amend the safety plan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Gail Blitz. I live at 3810 Wabeek Lake Drive East. Jay and I are neighbors. We actually serve on the board together. And I'm here to really reinforce what Jay was talking about. We've all worked very hard to try to show that we have a general interest in the whole neighborhood. We have lots of kids, lots of walkers, runners, dog walkers, and it's just an accident waiting to happen. Even though the street is wide, many times we have service trucks or heavy equipment parked on the street. We're trying to pass with our dog, and there'll be a car coming, and the traffic's pretty fast on that street. People consider it like a boulevard, I guess. And so for the concern of the safety and being able to walk and use that neighborhood, which is lovely, without having to be constantly alert and looking over your shoulder would really be a relief. I think we would all appreciate it very much if that could be considered. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Mark Schumacher. I live at 3826 Wabeek Lake Drive East, which is halfway between Jay and Gail. And I don't have a dog, I don't have a young child or grandchildren, nor do I walk or run. But every time I come out onto the street, I notice because there's a lot of curves on the street, a lot of blind spots, I will pull out and there's a car sitting on my butt essentially immediately. And most of the drivers on Wabeek Lake, both east and west, speed. And I will confess that I am guilty of that sin periodically myself. But if there were a safety path, it would eliminate the risks to people who are out walking, running, or particularly those with children or dogs who are very preoccupied trying to do what they're doing on the street. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Tony Zambelli. I also live on Wabeek Lake Drive, and I've lived in the township for 33 years. I lived in the village, then just off Lone Pine, and now the last 2 years here. I do have a small dog. I walk her often, and I've seen many problems with near collisions between vehicles, whether they're service vehicles or trucks, or people pulling lawn equipment, that sort of thing, or somebody speeding or not paying attention. And I know of someone that had to jump off the road with her dog in order to not be hit, and it's dangerous. So I think that it's really a great thing to do for the residents of that whole Wabeek North area. I think it would also open up, as we were going out to get people to sign this petition, I talked to a number of older folks that said that they won't go out and walk because it's too dangerous. And if there's a sad statement, I don't know what is. And so I think if there was a safety path, it would really help out a lot. And we certainly, in the community where we are, we'd love to have it on that side of the road, not worried about the landscaping. We'll do whatever needs to be there. So that's there. And then there's one other thing is that I was talking to some other residents, because one thing I observe every morning is the kids, when they're waiting for the bus to come, they don't have any place to stand. They have to stand in the street. So particularly when it's snowy and icy or the banks in the street, they have no place to stand. So the safety path would actually benefit kids as well waiting for the bus. Right now, the parents sort of block them off in a little cascade of cars and stuff to give them a safe area to stand. So appreciate you guys thinking about it. We'll answer any questions that you have at the appropriate time, and appreciate you also doing what you do for the township. Thank you.
Thank you.
I know you're going to get tired of this, but I'm from Wabeek Lake Drive. And I'm also a proponent of this sidewalk, because when I moved here 9 years ago, I'm very proud to have moved into this neighborhood, which is a beautiful, beautiful neighborhood. My wife and I, actually my significant other and I, would go walking on that street and various other side streets, and we'd have to jump off the side of the road when two cars would come, one from one direction and one from another direction, and it was very difficult to walk. You'd have to get out of the way in order to not get hit. So I'm not going to say any more, because I think we've probably said enough. I'm very much a proponent, and I think all the rest of us in the neighborhood are as well. And I think the funds are already there, if I'm not mistaken, that we would love to have that sidewalk placed there for all of us. Thank you.
Can you give us your name, sir? Can you give us your name as well for the notes?
I'm sorry?
Can you give your name as well for their notes?
John Campbell, 3882 Wabeek Lake Drive East. Just remember that, Wabeek Lake Drive East. And west.
Thank you.
Good evening, board, residents. My name is Oscar Garner. I reside at 3415 Broadland Lane. Been a resident of Bloomfield Township for about 18 years, and I'm running for Bloomfield Township trustee. I can be reached at contact@ogarnerjr.com, and also have a website, www.ogarnerjr.com, if you want to learn more about me and who I am. Thank you for your time.
Good evening, board, and everyone here. My name is Reginald Robinson, and I've been a resident of South Bloomfield, Highlands for 40 years. My home was built in 1982. As a resident of South Bloomfield, Highlands, I object to paying for South Bloomfield, Highlands Water Extension, SAD. As I studied, as I've been dealing with the water issue, it's a huge process, and some of the work extends away from our residents and not really on the property. So that's the reason for my objection. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Kelly Forster, 2467 Devonshire, 47-year resident of Bloomfield Township, 15-year resident in South Bloomfield Highlands. I highly object to paying for the South Bloomfield Highlands Water Extension, SAD. I don't feel the whole process has given our neighbors adequate and transparent information regarding the cost, regarding what the homeowner is responsible for. And we've been receiving numerous correspondences, really starting this May, that had homeowner responsible for this, homeowner that. Finally, in August, we received this nice long list of all of our responsibilities, all of the things we're supposed to be asking plumbers, be prepared to pay for. The cost just continues to go up. And to be honest, I don't know how I'm expected to even pay for all of this in a very small amount of time. I don't see the rush in going through with this so fast. I agree with what Jim said about pushing this back and taking another look, because you have to give the residents of the township and of South Bloomfield Highlands the time to get their finances in order. We are not a super wealthy neighborhood. We're working class people, a lot of senior citizens, a lot of retired folk, a lot of caregivers. We need time to prepare financially if we're going to be responsible for things, and we haven't been given that time. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
My name is Tim Flaherty, 2156 Devonshire, resident of South Bloomfield Highlands. What she just said, I don't have to repeat it. We all agree. She's right. We should not be paying for the brunt of this. This is going to be an asset of Bloomfield Township. We shouldn't incur all these costs. And we need more and better information. But we should not. I object to paying for this sad special assessment.
My name is Steve Bushing, 2265 Bedford Road. As a resident of SBH, I object to paying for the South Bloomfield Highlands water extension. Sad. Object completely and get these guys their sidewalk.
Hi, my name is Marshal. I live at 2213 Somerset Road, Bloomfield Township. I've been a resident for more years than I can remember, and I find it interesting that we're here to talk about something that's going to become a public asset. So the township is going to own the water pipes, but yet you're asking us as residents to not only pay for them, but to take an assessment and not gain any value. How would you like it if you bought a car and that car didn't work, and they said to you, you know what, I know you just bought it, but guess what? For only $30,000, we'll make it run. Do you think that you're going to gain $30,000 worth of assets? No, you're not. And you've done that to us. You've said to us, okay, your property may be worth $300,000. We're going to tack on 30, but you're not getting any value. But the township, is getting new pipes. We, the township, get to own that. We, the township, get to do what we want to do. We, the homeowners, don't. I totally object to this. I think it's not fair, and I think what you're doing is taking an asset away from us. If you're going to charge us, then we own it. I want my pipes. And when I sell this place, I want to sell my pipes with my place. I'm serious. If you're going to charge us, then let us have it. If you're going to pay for it, great, I'll pay the water bill. I want someone else to manage it. I want you to do the right thing. This isn't the right thing, and you guys know it's not the right thing. You've stonewalled. You've said, hey, we don't get to hear from you. Unfortunately, here we are. You get to hear from us. So do the right thing. There's precedent. There's lots of precedent. Look at it, reevaluate it, present it back to the homeowners, and say, hey, you know what? You're right. We're going to cover it. The township wants to own this. We want to make it right. Make it right. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Patricia Taratuta. I live at 38 Barrington. So I moved into South Bloomfield Highlands about 9 years ago. We thought it would be a great place to raise kids, and thus far it has been. Our neighbors are amazing. most of them. But when I found out about the water thing, I was one of the people that went around to get signatures. I was terrified that the water was gonna go out, and I wouldn't have, I wouldn't be able to bathe my children, and they're nasty. They're 6 and 8. So I really, wanted to do this regardless of the cost. And the more people I talked to, the more depressed I got, because I was talking to one of my neighbors who has 2 kids, one of which needs a lot of medical support, a lot. And he was like, I'm going to sign it because I need water for my newborn, but I don't know how I'm going to pay for it. And he can't move because, again, he doesn't have the money to right now. My mom, who's a widow, she lives next door to me. She paid her home in cash because she was able to with the money that she got from my stepfather passing away. And she's now going to have to pay all this extra money for water, which you need. It's a necessity. It's not something that you can opt into or opt out of. You need it. And trying to sell your home right now, you're going to take a loss because nobody wants to move into a house that the walls might break. They don't. So I'm sorry for being emotional, but I spoke to so many people who told me how hard it was going to be for them to pay for it. I can pay for it. It's coming out of my kids' college fund, but I'm going to pay for it because I need to. But I'm just saying that if there are other opportunities, and I don't like to rock the boat, I'm not a boat rocker. I like to go along with the crowd. I want to make people happy. I'm the social director. We're having a picnic next weekend. Yay. I won't be crying then, I promise. But when I found out that there were other subdivisions that were on private wells that were able to hook up without this cost, I don't think that we got a good response. I don't understand the response of, well, this is different. Well, you didn't explain why it was different, and I would appreciate that, okay? I would. So I do decline to pay for it because I don't think it's fair. If DTE was coming in and they brought their poles and electrical wires, we wouldn't pay for that. We would pay to hook up to it, certainly. We would pay for the service, but we wouldn't pay for the lines. We wouldn't pay for the poles. We wouldn't pay for the wires. So, thank you. Again, I apologize for being emotional, but I care about my neighbors, all of you. I really do, and the Wabeek people too. You guys are awesome. I hope you get your sidewalks. So, thank you.
Good evening. My name is Greg Long. I do live at 2273 Somerset Road. Like many other residents of South Bloomfield Highlands, my family and I have lived here for nearly 10 years. We look forward to hopefully living there for many more, but do object to paying for the South Bloomfield Highland SAD project, and do hope that a more equitable approach can be taken. Thank you.
Hi everybody, I'm Christopher Heverly, 1948 Devonshire Road, Bloomfield Hills. I also disagree with having to pay for the water extension. Considering that we were told in the past that whenever we wanted to hook up to the system that we could without cost. Also, most people, or a lot of people probably aren't educated about our system. We have a private well system that's approximately 80 years old that supplies 205 homes. And we weren't allowed to have meters for our sewer until about 15 to 17 years ago. I've been living there for 23 years, so everybody paid the full rate, which currently one of my neighbors that's here still doesn't have a meter, and he's paying the full rate. So we have about 25% of our neighborhood is paying the full rate because they haven't got meters, which is their responsibility. But some people are not educated, don't know, whatever different reasons. But that comes out to $500,000 every 10 years. So since the meters have been available, gradually more and more people have got them. But we're talking probably $1 million has went into the sewer fund, extra money that went to wherever. And then before that, for the previous 20 to 3 years, 100% of the people paid the full amount, which in today's dollars is probably $2 to $4 million. So this subdivision in the past 30 to 40 years has probably paid an extra $3 million or so, roundabout numbers. It could be much higher in revenue that went to the township and didn't come back to the subdivision. So I don't think that's fair, has never been accounted for. There's never been an outreach to these residents to try to convince them to get to the meters. Even though the subdivision is a board, we've tried to educate people, and just some people don't, or they don't read things or whatever. So I think that should be taken into consideration, the money that we've given to the township, you know, as part of this project, and that we shouldn't be paying for all of it.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm Owen Rocketine, and I reside at 2060 Devonshire. I've resided at this address since 1964, except for a few years. I want to address the board as I feel misguided by Bloomfield Township. In 1969, South Bloomfield Highlands moved from septic tanks to township sewer system, and that's what Chris was alluding to. There was no special assessment district. The township paid for sewer lines and connected each home to the sewer because we were residents and taxpayers. At the same time, the township supervisor, Homer Case, informed the residents the township had moved their water lines to 4 feet of our water lines. We could hook up at any time we wanted to at no cost. I'm probably one of the few people that was there at that meeting when Homer said that. Sometime between 1969 and now, the rules on hooking up city water changed, and no one from the township informed the residents of this change. If the township had informed us rules are changing, we most likely would have moved to city water and avoided the SAD. I feel misled and misguided due to the lack of notification that the rules were changing. Many of the subdivision wells at the time, and Jim has mentioned a lot of them, moved to city water without a SAD in the past. And as recent as 15, 20 years ago, St. Paul's United Methodist Church, which resided on 7 lots of subdivision, moved the church and a private home they owned to the city water without a SAD. And that is pretty recent. I'd like to ask the board to comment if they feel they have an obligation to rectify the fact they were never notified the rules were changing. Thank you for your time and dedication, and I know your jobs are not easy, so I appreciate all you do. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Kelly Staffen, and my wife and I reside at 2170 Lancaster. 11 years ago, we decided to put our house up in Berkeley of 26 years because our kids moved to Rochester Hills and Commerce Township and with our grandchildren, and we wanted to be a little closer to them and an easy access to get to their homes. And we, after an extensive house search, we decided to buy this house on Lancaster. We fell in love with it, made it our own, and it's a great gathering place for our kids and for our grandkids. They can't wait to come over and see it. So to think that I would have to pay thousands of dollars to have water brought to my house 11 years ago, I probably would have continued my search for another house. I love this house. I like my neighbors. It's quiet. But I oppose this having to pay for water brought to my house. It's not a good thing. I'm retired, fixed income. My wife's retired. We like to travel. And now we have to decide whether we're going to travel more or not, or pay money for water. It's just not right. Thank you for your time.
Hi, I am Sikandar Rashid. I stay at 2198 Somerset Road. As a resident of South Bloomfield Highlands, I object to paying for the South Bloomfield Highlands water extensions special assessment.
Good evening. My name is Karen Perry. I live at 26 Marlborough Drive. I've lived there for over 30 years, and I'm a retiree right now. And as a resident of South Bloomfield Highlands, I object to paying for the South Bloomfield Highlands Water Extension SAD. It's going to be quite a burden on me. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Anirudh Papanini. I reside at 2035 Devonshire. Been there for 3 years, a little bit over. The reason why people come to Bloomfield, why? Schools, property value, and the neighborhood. Obviously, there's a community here. But here's the thing, $40,000 assessment over 205 houses. That's a drop in property value collectively of $8,200,000. Why would someone move to Bloomfield Hills then? City should pick up that bill. There's no reason for it. It's a public asset. You're dropping everyone else's property value in doing so. Do the right thing. I refuse to pay for the SAD on this.
Thank you for the opportunity to talk. My name is Deborah Dyack. I reside at 215 Barrington Road, and I've been a resident for over 50 years. I grew up in the neighborhood, moved away for a while and came back. I love our little humble neighborhood, but as it was stated earlier, we are a neighborhood of people who are either retirees or new couples who are starting out on fixed or limited incomes, and this has become an amazing burden for everyone. I thought that I was going into retirement, but I'm going to have to quit my volunteer work and get a job that pays to pay for this. So as a resident of South Bloomfield Highlands, I object to paying for the South Bloomfield Highlands Water Extension SAD.
Good afternoon, good evening. My name is Stephanie Frega. I reside at 211 Barrington Road. My husband and I have lived there for 12 years with our two young children. I'm a public school teacher, so after we got married and we were looking for a home, we decided we wanted to come to Bloomfield to offer our own children an excellent education. We fell in love with the neighborhood. I grew up on a dirt road, so it felt great to us. We've been very happy there. We have met wonderful people. Our children have had an excellent experience in the public school system. But we didn't know that by choosing to live here that we were also giving up safety and the well-being of our family and our home, that our failed water infrastructure meant that if we had a fire, our house would not be saved, as it happened to two other houses in the neighborhood. I know that you admitted that it was a failure, that the township was aware of it, and it's unacceptable. It is scary to think that it's still continuing. It needs to be fixed. Just as other people mentioned earlier, where are we going to get this money? I'm a school teacher because I love kids. I want to teach them equity and equality and kindness and justice. And we don't make a whole lot of money, but I do good work for good people. And just like someone else said, where's the money going to come from? Well, it's either from my daughter being able to do dance this year or their college fund. There's not a whole lot of extra money for anybody right now. And come to find out, when there have been changes like this in other neighborhoods, that it's been paid for or helped to be paid for, that just doesn't feel right. So as a resident, I object to paying for the South Bloomfield Highlands water extension.
Good evening, and I'm Father Anthony Papaski, live at 2447 Devonshire. We from Devonshire are very active tonight, Kelly, right? So I would like to stand with all my neighbors and very kindly ask all of you for the support of the neighborhood. When I am newcomer, 12 years ago, came from Macedonia, from Europe, and when people ask me, where do you live? I say I live in the poor neighborhood with the rich zip code. So we do enjoy all the pleasure we have in our subdivision. This thing with the water is really much in America. I came from Europe. In America, 21st century, not to have a water, it hurts. My village, back in 1987, fought against the communism for the water, and I have to stand for the water and the right way to bringing the water in the subdivision. So respectfully, I decline the way the township proposes to pay so much money for installment of the water. Thank you for your attention.
My name is Derek Chester. I live at 1949 Devonshire Road. I do oppose the SAD extension. To a couple other people's point, if there's $34 million to service the water system, why is that not available to us but is available to the rest of the city? And to the point about the houses burning, one of the houses that burnt was right behind my home. It was sad to watch when people are just standing there watching this house burn because they have to roll out. I think I looked at my car, it was like 0.9 miles of hose because they can't hook up in our sub to extinguish the fires. They're either sourcing water from Square Lake or Woodward Avenue. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Manveen and I live on Alexander Drive. So I came here to talk about safety path, but after hearing all these neighbors, I feel I should stand with them so if I have to choose between these two things, I'm for their cause more so, but I'm here for safety path as well. Thank you.
Good evening. It's my first time ever coming. That's how important it is. My name is Carol Graves. I'm at 2251 Lancaster in the South Bloomfield Highlands subdivision. I oppose the SAD. This is your asset. You should be paying for it. Please help us. I am 1 year from retirement, and this is now upon us. I've lived here for 32 years in this house. Please, you need to help us do the right thing. Thank you very much.
Greetings. Hi, my name is Lisa Scott. I live at 151 Marlborough, and I also disagree with paying for the South Bloomfield Highlands water extension, SAD. But we have a very mixed and a beautiful community. We have little kids, we have senior citizens, we have a very healthy mix of people, and all of them are, a lot of them are on fixed incomes. A lot of them have different expenses with their children's. You know, there's just, this should be something that is paid for by you, because we as good citizens and do not have the wherewithal or the funds to pay for a system that should be something that you guys should be responsible for. And also, I'd like to bring up something also about maybe rezoning our area for the speed and for putting four-way stops, because there's a lot of the roads where at the top of the hill, we've been a drive-through because of the construction, but also a lot of people have learned new ways to get to and fro. So what they're doing is they're speeding, and they're going through stop signs. We need maybe some speed bumps and just a good evaluation, because we've got people that are cutting up on curbs. I've seen people on the wrong side of the road. I've been doing a lot of gardening. I've seen some people try to get out of the way of a car, and then they go and they jump onto a yard, and then they run the other way, and the car may try to hit them twice just by accident, because they didn't put a signal light on and they were on the wrong side of the road because someone else was at a stop sign, but they stopped in the middle of the road. So there's a lot of chaos, and I think a lot of speed is built up, and we're getting a lot of traffic with utility people and a lot of different trucks and a lot of, just landscape people, I misspoke, sorry. But it just seems like we're like a lot of people are just going through our neighborhood. And we've got people that are on walkers, we've got people that are walking, their pets. We've got people with strollers, people with young children. We've got people and they're doing their part, but they're walking on neighbors' yards, and some of them have had to dodge so they don't get hit. So we really need to address not only the path, and that is a deep concern, but we also need to address the speed and maybe rezoning signage, and also possibly, maybe painting the speed limit throughout, like at intersections, so people understand, because maybe they see the speed limit, or I see people on their phone all the time. So I don't know. It's just a thought. But it looks like there's a lot of options, and I've seen in other neighborhoods where they've got the speed bumps and they've got signs on both sides. So it just seems like there's a lot we could do to maybe handle the pedestrian and the vehicular traffic and make it safe for everybody.
Great. Thank you very much.
All right.
I'm Mary Bradish. I live at 2245 Devonshire Road, and I've been living in this subdivision for 49 years. I object to having to pay this SAD assessment. First, when the petition came around, it was to explore and get more information. Now we're at the point of having to pay for an installation. My second point is, and I have a sewer meter, and based on what my payment is for consumption on the sewer, I use those numbers to determine what my consumption would be on the water system. And I've determined that the 200 plus houses in this subdivision would generate revenue for the township of $1 million plus, and you would have to do nothing for it because this would be a brand new line for at least 10 years. If you did anything, it would be very nominal maintenance on it. And you are asking us to pay for it. And I object to that. And I think you need to consider that because we are not one of the big buck subdivision of this township, that we deserve more consideration for the services that are provided to us. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Martin Nichols. I'm at 275 Marlborough Drive. And I also, as all my neighbors here, have very eloquently laid out to you a lot of reasons why we very much object to bearing the full cost of this project. And I think at the very heart of it, I think the responsibility of the township, the place we've chosen to live, to raise our children and send them to school and so on, is the township is there to be involved in the health and safety of our community, and equally throughout the entire community. That we shouldn't be set off to the side such that I have to worry, if something happens at my house, maybe they're not going to be able to put the fire out, or if the water goes out, are my kids going to have enough water to be safe and healthy? The people on the other side of this, other side of the street don't have to worry about those things. And why we all of a sudden should have to bear the cost of let's say that change to our system doesn't seem to make sense. The township, being responsible for those things, should take on that cost, and that's why we pay our taxes. Thank you.
My name is Mark Intockley. I reside at 1550 Georgetown Drive. I am a candidate on the November ballot. I'm running for trustee. First, I'd like to start with the 15% overrun on the budgets for SAD that the township can approve without going back. It's very clear from the Highland Township residents that, especially for seniors, that can hurt our budgets. I don't think the township should approve item number 5 for that reason, or make a change, or go back to a lower rate of maybe 5%. So that's number 1. Number 2, does the township have cash to help the men and women in this room and the families? And it's interesting to note that the comment on public safety and the fire department and the fire hydrant hose, the township has $15 million in their capital improvement fund. So should public safety be responsible for some of those fees? And can that $15 million be used to support putting out fires in your neighborhoods? And I think that should be a yes. The township has not had any payments coming in from water and sewer related to public safety funds and fire department funds. Remember a few years ago we had asked to approve a millage, and 100% of the millage the second township millage would go to fire and public safety. Last year, less than $2 million of that total amount was transferred to public safety. That seems to open up a lot of cash.
to help these men and women and these families. Lastly, on an annual basis, the township has been garnering assets through water and sewer for the healthcare retirement fund. Water and sewer customers have had to pay an extra. This was validated by the Mackinac Center. It was $1.4 million above the contributions required by the state of Michigan. Now that we're fully funded, we have Jason Tice, the finance director, saying those extra funds can be used for other areas. While in the audit, it shows that as being a contribution to the water and sewer fund reserves. So why don't you remove the requirements since we're fully funded, and that opens up $250,000 in water and sewer expenses to help these people out. There's a lot of ways we can contribute in different areas, and by taking a look at what we were doing right, what we were not doing right, and hopefully these will be discussed at some point in the future. Thank you.
How you doing? My name's Glenn Wilcox. I live at 351 Marble Drive. And times are tough, you know, for everybody, to include myself. I'm a disabled vet, and this isn't easy for anybody in here, to include myself. So I would like to say, as a resident of the South Bloomfield Highlands, I object to paying for this SAD. Like, this makes it really tough. So I feel bad for everybody in here. It's horrible. So hopefully you guys can help us out.
Good evening, Susan Brody, 3807 Wabeek Lake Drive West. I was here initially to talk to you about the safety path. I find it patently ironic that the acronym for SAD is SAD. I'm finding things very emotional. I also hear that people have done really their timesheets, their spreadsheets, and have done their fiduciary duty to plead their case to you. I don't want to dismiss the reason I'm here to bookend for the safety path. We do need it. There are tectonic plates shifting on the streets, which is why a lot of people can't really even walk the streets. There are crevices, and there are ditches, and there is loose asphalt in all of the streets, bar none. I guess a couple people have privately paid for some of their houses to be paved or asphalted independently, with or without, I think, approval or inspection. But God, I have to give it to the sad people. I'm leaving here sad, but I am leaving here hopeful that you have heard them and that you will hear me. Thank you.
Hi. I see that a lot of you are taking notes, and that's a good thing. My name is Debbie Morgan. I live at 2275 Devonshire Road for the last 64 years. I've lived there almost all my life, and it's been a wonderful house for my family, my parents, and all of us, and now it's a wonderful house for my husband and I, and we have one son that still lives with us. He has autism, and this house was made for him. And if you ask him, it's Kenny's house, because it's just laid out perfectly, and so we don't want to move. Other ways we probably would. With all these problems coming up, I don't understand why we're on the line for this sad extension. We've been paying water bills all my life. I know a portion goes to this. And like the gentleman said a couple times before me, there's ways of getting that money and getting it done. So I really impress upon you, put your heads together, look at it, and help our neighborhood. It really needs help. We're not a rich neighborhood. We're a middle-class neighborhood that takes care of things. We don't cause problems. We're a good neighborhood for the township. We set an example. And the people in there said, my neighbors are wonderful. I'm very lucky. And you've got to understand that we pay for what we are due to pay. But when there's something that is amiss, you don't get this type of response. This is, a lot of people from our neighborhood and probably more that even would like to come. So keep all that in mind. I appreciate your attention. Thank you very much again. My name is Debbie Morgan, and I've lived here a couple years. Thanks.
I'm the opposite. I have lived here. My name is Kit Reese. I'm at 237 Marlboro, and I haven't moved in yet. I bought a house 3 months ago. It has a myriad of problems and that I'm dealing with, but I also didn't know about this assessment. I went to the township, and Michael Shostak told me about it, but I didn't know about it. The owners claim they didn't know. In addition, there are also smaller things, like there's 9 houses, I happen to be one, where the connection that we have to do from the stop box to the city is on my neighbor, because evidently his was a model home and I was the office at some point. And so mine will be 3 to 4 times as much as anybody else's, which is significant. These are 25, it could be 10 grand for my hookup. I mean, it's significant that's going to be due when this starts. So but the other side of this is I moved from Troy, and we had a fire in my house, and I was on a cul-de-sac with a hydrant right there, and had that not happened, we would have lost our house. Still took 15 months, but the idea of not having water, that was the idea of not being able to fight a fire. That can't be, it's just not right. So we've got to get this done, but at the same time, I'm coming out 30 years of marriage and a divorce and starting anew. This isn't quite how I planned to do it, but I'm hearing everyone else, and I'm in great shape compared to everybody else, but it's like it's not feasible. It's just not practical, and there's too many people being hurt. So please consider it. Thank you. I'm welcome to Bloomfield Township. I'm leaving now.
Hello, my name is Matthew Abel. I live at 3922 Wabeek Lake Drive East, and I'm here about the sidewalk, but I have to comment that the special assessment district issue, which I was not aware of at all, certainly needs to be rethought. I don't know the answer, but the current proposal seems not appropriate. Anyway, we have a dog. We live on the Wabeek Lake Drive East, and it's very clear that it's not a safe area to be out walking. I've commented to my wife about that before, and when the neighborhood association brought me the petition, I said, boy, it's about time. So it's a really lovely area, and we need safety paths. Thank you very much.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Okay, we'll go ahead and close the public comment, and we do have a couple items later in the agenda that I'm guessing a lot of us will have some questions, and we have our team here to respond. So until we get to those, we do have, next is the approve the board minutes of August 12th. Unless there's any changes, I would look for a motion.
So moved.
Motion by trustee Kalinsky.
Support.
Support by trustee Murray. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? That passes. Next, we have fireworks permit for private event at Wabeek Country Club. We have Fire Marshal Pete Vlahos here.
Good evening, board. I just would like to say I heard a couple quick comments about not having fire safety or water provided. We have a plan in place, I'm not sure if everybody knows, to protect your homes using township water. We have processes in place. We have certain loads that we're going to drop. We are fully aware of what's going on. Rest assured you are protected in an emergency, okay? I just want everyone to know that. Okay, dear board, the date for the proposed fireworks at Wabeek Country Club is scheduled for September 1st, 2024 at dusk. I conducted the inspection on August 22nd, 2024. According to all the information that the applicant provided, it is suitable for the fireworks display as described in the proposal. I also want to make a note that this,
Hold on one second, Pete. I would encourage, if anybody, based on some information that was just said, if you're here about South Bloomfield Highlands, please stay. Okay, sorry.
No, that's fine.
When people ask questions, I'd really like them to be here to engage when we ask.
Absolutely.
Sorry.
So just a side note, Wabeek Country Club has had fireworks displays in the past. The most recent was this past June. This is the same company that's going to be doing the show this Sunday if it's approved by the board. So I bring it to you for approval.
Anyone have any questions for Fire Marshal?
So we've approved in the past, usually for country clubs and this. This is for a private event, correct? This is a private event at the country club?
Correct.
So we've had people that want to do it at their private homes or private events, and at times either the board is approved or not approved. What is different about this one today?
The difference with this is it's on a private property. It is going to be a professional display that is going to be at a commercial building. Being that it's on their property, it's different than the state law for doing consumer fireworks, which, you know, us as residents and as citizens of Michigan, we're allowed to do it during certain dates. When you are a professional company licensed commercially through the federal government, you are allowed to do it based on the approval of the board. So that's the difference between that. Even though it is
But this
it's at a private.
Is within the dates. That's
Well, it's
why we
within
were
the dates, but it's still, it's not the party's property. Wabeek is the one that's sponsoring it. So it's on their property, and if they're given permission to do it, it's going to be on their property.
I think that is, to your point, I'm not likely to approve something outside of the dates, but this is Labor Day.
Yeah.
Which is one of the state days where you can put fireworks out.
Yeah, and at one time we talked about where some of the fireworks were going over public property or public water. Is any of this part of the firework going over any public property or staying on private property for all?
Stayed on private property based on what they've shown for the circumference and the diameter of the show. It stays on their property, so it won't be going over anything public.
Yeah, I believe the one that we did the last time with Chris is referring to is one that where it was going to be going out over water that was not all owned by
Correct.
the individual. So in that case, I know Wabeek has done this before, and they have a large property.
Yeah, and it's in the same site, same display pretty much. It's going to be a much shorter display. They're only using, in essence, less than 500 of the mortar shells, so it's going to be a quicker show.
Any other questions? No, I'd look for if no questions, I'd look for a motion.
So moved.
Motion by trustee Kalinsky.
Support.
Support by trustee McKee. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That does pass.
Okay,
Thank you.
So next we have considering approval of a letter of agreement with police officers with the POLC. We have here also Chief Gallagher to help with questions and our labor attorney, John Clerk. So this came up, and the question, ironically, is because, yes, there are people now going into classes, but 45 of the last 55 top candidates don't have a bachelor's, so we can't even consider them. So although, yes, there are 55 great candidates, the 10 we were able to talk to were not of the caliber that Bloomfield Township would want to hire. But we did have somebody from another agency that is of the good caliber as a next door agency, but comes in with a higher level of experience. And before, there wasn't really a policy written for how do you handle those lateral transfers. So you don't want to give up seniority here where you want to treat the people who've been here longer to get that seniority, but can there be a way to approve at a paying for experience? So if they have 1 year of service, pay them as a 1 year. If they have 2 years. So that's where the start, because originally there was that discussion of what should we do. We can't talk to the top. The best of the best is no longer somebody we can talk to. Correct. Based on the bachelor's requirement. And so you and Dan Brown came and said, let's talk about some other ideas. We have great candidates. So if you want to kind of take over from there, talk to them about what you and Dan came up with.
Yeah, one of the, many of the agencies now, unfortunately, we're stealing from each other. And with the benefit systems that are out there with all the agencies agencies across Michigan now, employees are portable. And so we've had some interest in our agency from individuals who are officers in other surrounding communities. And in this particular case, we have somebody who's been with an agency for about 8 or 9 years, and bringing them here in Bloomfield Township at the year one wage would just, we can't attract those candidates. And so we approached Dani and the board with this letter of agreement. I know John Clerk has been our labor attorney for a long time, and we've bounced ideas off each other for many times. And I know several of the communities that he services now already have lateral agreements in place. So because we're in contract, an agreement with our union was required, in which they fully supported on this matter. And we brought it to Dani and John, and something was drafted and hopefully be signed.
And we also offer this to the police as well. The reason why this came up is because we do have a candidate. So as we all know, we all were kind of given some really old bad contracts that were pre-COVID dates, and obviously also affects the way we can recruit. So we will be opening up all those contracts early instead of waiting till 2026, because we have that compensation and benefit study that's coming. But in the meantime, we have an amazing candidate. So we offered the same option to the fire department, but because they are currently fully staffed, they felt that there was no need currently to do this and just focus on the negotiations of the new contract.
Correct. And this letter of agreement,
we offered both fire and police the same option.
And this letter of agreement stands through the end of our contract. I don't know if John needs to add anything on that or not.
Nothing further, no.
Do you guys want to ask some questions?
Sure.
Yeah.
I think this is a great thing. Obviously, we need to find ways to recruit, especially the best talent out there. And people are mobile, so we have to be able to adapt to the ever-changing times. So this is both for pay as well as vacation time, or is this only pay?
This is only just pay right now.
Was vacation time or some of those other things brought up by some of our candidates?
Not at this
as
time.
a barrier?
Not at this moment. But with contract negotiations coming up, I think that's something that we will be able to hopefully address during those conversations. But at this point in time, in this case, and which brought this forward, was the candidate didn't demand anything, right? But we know his history, we know what's his lifestyle, and with a family and a baby on the way, that in order to attract these candidates, we have to be competitive with the current salaries that they're making. And so, as of right now, we have not addressed that.
Okay. And again, I appreciate that. We're trying to find guys and girls who are at different points in their lives, and making a change for an organization to get our better culture and to get our better work-life balance. It is hard to take a financial hit of $10,000, $15,000, $20,000. So if we want to get those amazing candidates, we have to adapt. I would implore us to eventually take a look at that vacation time. Having families or been on a job 8 or 9 years, that may be something that those candidates are going to look forward to. And if we're proactive on it, that'll be a way for us to continue to attract those amazing candidates.
Yeah, and hopefully with...
That's in the benefits, because
in the compensation study, hopefully
that's something we're already looking at for. Yeah. So this is specific to somebody before the contract that we're already working on, which includes looking at vacation time, because obviously some people like to travel more when they're younger. All of that's included in what John and the unions and the chiefs and all of us are already talking about for the next contract, which again, we're looking to open up early. Not in 2026, but in the next year. But this is for somebody to get us through, because that's what, April of 25, that we'll have changes hopefully for all of that. This is somebody that's here today, here now, that we can hire now.
No, this is a great bridge to get us there and continue to make us more attractive to all the other candidates.
And it's a discussion that we're having with Dr. Russell now with the compensation study. So there, I believe hopefully there will be some changes made in that competitive market in the near future with that compensation study. So I think that it's all being in that conversation now, and with the survey going out to our employees, which came out this week, hopefully we're going to hear back from what the employees also are concerns for them as well.
Yes, and I know you guys have been doing a lot of recruiting and talking to people, so you're also going to be able to see and hear what the barriers are for them to hire. If it is our bachelor's degree, or if there are other barriers that we can work forward as a team to try to remove so we can get those amazing best candidates.
Yeah, and I'm open.
I know.
They're looking at everything, right? And then John's also here if you have any questions based on, John Clark's also here if anybody has that. If there's no questions, I look for hopefully an approval.
So moved.
Motion by
Support.
Trustee Kalinsky, support by Trustee Murray. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That does pass.
Great, thank you very much. We'll see you soon.
Sign that before I leave.
See you tomorrow to get it.
All right, thank you. Thank you. So next we have, for South Bloomfield Highlands, we have considering the award of South Bloomfield Highlands Water Main Project contract. Do you want to first show what is going and then answer?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll do that. Good evening, Board. Corey Almas, Director of Engineering and Environmental Service. Here to present the South Bloomfield Highlands Water Main Replacement Project Contract Award. So just a quick history on why we're here. The water main in South Bloomfield Highlands was installed in the late 1920s using cast iron pipe. The existing privately owned and operated well water distribution system has exceeded its useful life. Fire protection for the subdivision is insufficient. What I mean by that is that I've been informed by the fire chief that they will not connect to the hydrants, the existing hydrants out there, for fear of collapse of that system should they draw too much water through that system.
They're not our fire hydrants, correct?
They are
It's not
not.
that we
Nope.
hadn't maintained, okay.
No, they're the South Bloomfield Highlands Water Distribution System hydrants. The existing piping is undersized, resulting in pressure fluctuations during peak demand, and then the water quality, as reported in the South Bloomfield Highlands 2023 Water Quality Report, is nearing the action level for lead. I make this point because their parts per billion is 13 parts per billion as tested last year. The action level for lead is 15 parts per billion. That is going to change by the state in Eagle, and it'll be reduced to 12 parts per billion. So there is an urgency for this project. The timeline to date, I'm not going to go through all of these, but I'll hit some bullets. In June 13 of 2023, there was a township held a water SAD information meeting. In January 8 of 2024, the Board of Trustees, at the request of South Bloomfield Highlands, directed engineering, ESD, and staff to expedite this project to this point. We've held design kickoff meetings. We've had meetings with the members of the South Bloomfield Highlands Board through this process. We've held April 2nd, 2024, a public information meeting here. We've had plans submitted to Eagle on May 15 of 2024. We've mailed out correspondence through this process. We received, pretty remarkable, I might add, an Eagle permit on June 24th, 2024. Thank you to Eagle, and kudos to Karen Stickle, HRC, and Angela Heisinger, the township engineer, for coordinating that and facilitating that expedition of that permit process. That was a major concern, as we mentioned back in January, for potential delays to this project. So, final plan reviews in July of 24. The project was advertised in July 29. In August 20, last week, the bids were open, and then today we're presenting the award of the contract. Not the approval of the SAD, we're simply presenting the award of the contract to the lowest bidder. The SAD water main project replacement overview, the installation of 14,600 feet of new 8-inch water main, the installation of new gate valves, hydrants, 1-inch service lines up to the property line with a new stop box, 5 connections to the township main for redundancy, the abandonment of the existing water distribution system, and the decommissioning and demolition of the existing wells. And I wanted to mention, too, that 2 of the additional connections here, one on the east side is not included, and another one here on the west side will not be included in the cost of the SAD. That was done separately and will be covered by the township because it provides redundancy to the system as a whole. I would just want to remind and go over once again the residential service connection side of the project. Residents will be required to coordinate their individual water meter installation and service connections from stop box to the home with a plumbing contractor. Residents can choose to have a plumbing contractor install a new 1-inch water service line from the stop box to the house. Residents can opt to also use their, or can opt to use their existing water service line, providing they verify the existing service line location. They provide there is no evidence of cross-contamination or illicit connections, and they prove that there's no evidence of lead lines or galvanized lines previously connected to lead. And what we talk about when we say the private connection, we're talking about from the stop box to the home, and that's considered the private water service line. Bids were received at 10 a.m. on Tuesday, August 20. A total of 8 bids were received in red. The low bidder for this project is Paymar Enterprises out of New Haven, Michigan, with a low bid amount of $3,769,000. Paymar has previous work experience in Bloomfield Township and neighboring communities in Oakland County and in Southeast Michigan region, with several references for similar work performed recently with favorable response on job performance. HRC has also had satisfactory work experience with Paymar on previous projects. The tentative project schedule, again, I just kind of want to go over some dates. The yield permit was submitted in May. We received on June 24 the permit. In August, we had the advertisement. We actually were ahead of schedule which was completed in July 29. We initially proposed September for the bid letting. We got that done on August 20. September was the potential or the anticipated board of meeting to award the project. That's today. Our next dates are September 23rd for the public hearing. And then the time of completion at this point is October for anticipated start of construction, October 31, 2025 for substantial completion. That's water main installation and service line installation to the property lines. That includes the gates and hydrants. And then final completion is April 30th, 2026. And that consists of the decommissioning and abandonment of the existing system. With that, staff is recommending that the board move to award South Bloomfield Highlands Water Main Replacement Project, SAD number 601, to Paymar Enterprises Incorporated from New Haven, Michigan, in the amount of $3,769,000. Should the quantities needed to complete the project or conditions discovered in the field increase the contract cost above 10%, ESD shall obtain approval from the Township Supervisor prior to issuing approval of said contract amount. Additionally, should the quantities needed to complete the project or conditions discovered in the field increase the contract cost above 30%, ESD shall obtain approval from the Board of Trustees prior to issuing approval of the SAD contract amount. With that, I'd like to introduce our staff that's here from HRC, Karen Stickle and Chris Ross. From assessing, Darren and Jen are here. From DPW, Noah's here. And from engineering, Angela's here to help answer any questions you might have.
I just want to, 2 things before we go to the board questions. I know there might have been a misunderstanding of somebody on the board of the South Bloomfield Highlands that was telling people that this shows up on this winter's taxes. And can you confirm, that's not true? It's next year, so it's 18 months? It's 16 to 18 months before. Can you come up? Sorry, you guys. You might as well sit close up here in the front because you'll need to speak into the microphone. But I believe that if it's due then December 2025 and they can pay up to February 2026.
That's correct. Our taxes for this winter are committed in September before this SAD will even go through. So this wouldn't hit until next winter's tax bill.
So one stress that's out there right now, I just want to clear that up, that what I heard tonight, multiple people thought that they would have a payment this year. And we're sure that it would be no earlier than when it's due in December of 25 or when it's also due in the later time at February 26.
Correct. The only out-of-pocket cost they'd be looking at right now is their connection fees.
Okay. So I just want to make sure. And then the other biggest thing is, why is this different? So I know we went through and sat through a presentation of why is this different. Can you explain what is different? Because the village in particular, you took on a valuable asset that, how many decades did that survive before you had to put money into it?
Yeah, so the history of the South Bloomfield Highlands.
No, first go to the village,
For
yeah.
the village, I'm sorry. The history of the village is that back in the 1960s, Detroit Water and Sewer made the connection to that existing system that was still relatively, there was use life left in that system and pretty significant life left in that system. Detroit Water and Sewer made that connection. That system then was later adopted by the township to oversee and maintain that system. 50 years later, thereabouts, in 2017, is when the township then made water main replacement project, or water main replacement within the village. So the difference is that with South Bloomfield Highlands, the township connecting to that existing system is not, how do I say this?
Not going to last 50 years.
I'm sorry?
It's not going to last 50 years. Meaning like you took on an asset and people paid into the system for 50 years and then you fixed it.
Right. So
what you're saying is,
regardless of paying into the system, the condition of the existing South Bloomfield Highlands system is not conducive such that the township is willing to make that connection.
but the difference is we didn't build anything back then, and this one we're building. So when you built, so I'm trying to, like, again, it keeps coming back, and we've all even asked the same question. In the 60s, you took on a valuable asset that lasted 50 years, and when they finally paid 50 years later, they had already paid in the system.
Yes.
Right now, you're not taking on an asset, because there is no asset to take. So you're creating, and asset, by the way, that isn't, it costs money, it doesn't, asset means something different to us, it costs money.
The
but
township took ownership of a viable asset at that time that was working properly and functioning properly, that lasted 50 years. The township is not willing to take on, at this point, due to the existing condition of the South Bloomfield Highlands water main system, make a connection into or tie into that system.
those were my two main ones that keep coming back based on what I heard. I heard other questions tonight too, but you probably all have a lot of questions too. But those I know are the two that I kept asking as well. Does anybody want to start? So I'm sure we all have questions.
Sure. I don't know if I might need to come back around if I've got them all. So one of the things that was just mentioned tonight, and Corey, this might be something you need to get back to us on, but a statement was made tonight that in 1969, they moved from septic to sewer lines in South Bloomfield Highlands, and the township paid for that. Is that correct?
I'd have to get back with you on that one, though.
Okay, because the reason...
Oh, Angela?
Oh, Angie's got it.
No, the sanitary sewer for South Bloomfield Highlands was funded through SAD 142. So contrary to what some residents had stated, it was done through the SAD process at that time.
Okay, that's why I was asking, because as a resident in the subdivision since the 80s, when we bought our home had already been hooked up to city water, but we were still using septic. And I know that when the septic lines were run through my neighborhood, it was prior to my ownership, so it goes back before the 80s. But I know that people paid for it back then because one of the streets would not vote for it. And that was an issue that we addressed just last year on the board, where somebody wanted to develop on that street and had to put the infrastructure in at their own cost of the developer. So we paid for those, as we did for our roads, because we were dirt, to get our roads paved. And so I just wanted to clarify, because I thought, well, whoa, they paid for their sewer, their septics and sewer lines. So let somebody else ask another question. I might have another, but I wanted to clarify on that if that was correct. Thank you.
Anybody on this side?
I mean, I'll just say, for me, the only outstanding question I have, and I guess I'll just take a step back before that, the number of people that are here at the meeting today and that were at the previous meetings, I think highlights that one thing that the township could have done better was communicate the project. And, I'm not trying to, and I'm not trying to win, brownie points here with anybody. I just want to acknowledge that I do think that that was something the township could have been a little more ahead, seeing that the residents are getting the checklist in August, 10 days ago, 12 days ago, that is, that's not great for me as a trustee to hear, because these people don't know, I wouldn't know that this isn't a project that somebody's dealing with all the time. So just to understand, putting the cost aside, which obviously in and of itself is a huge burden and a huge concern and the main thing that people are focused on, but then aside from that, we're asking them to do, all of these steps in a system that they're not familiar with and steps that they've never had to do before. So I think that, not that this is going to come up so many times for the township again, but I do think that the communication is certainly something that we need to work on. And even, evidence of that now is we've talked about this and we've had, meetings about this project. And my understanding is that the township doesn't pay for these sorts of projects, but then I'm hearing comments from residents and they're identifying certain projects and they're saying, and I don't know where their information is coming from, but it's important for me to know that, maybe they're inaccurate in what they heard or they don't know, because I just want to be sure that this project is being treated the same as all the other projects, because my understanding now is that we are treating it the same and we're not asking the residents of South Bloomfield Highlands to pay for anything that other residents have not paid for. But the concern for me and the disconnect for me is, why do residents believe that? That's a problem.
Yeah. Stephanie, we've done our research, engineering's done our research and gone back historically as far as we can to identify the mechanism that the townships followed for whether it's water or sewer projects. And there's nothing that we've found on our end that deviates from what's being proposed with this project. I don't know where the South Bloomfield Highlands residents are getting their information. I don't know. We provide contact information to all of them. And I don't disagree with you that being a little bit more informed to the residents, we can do a better job of that. Certainly, and based on the turnout today, it's obvious, right? So I've attended their HOA meetings. I've welcomed and offered my attendance to future meetings, and anytime they have questions or want to more information on it, I'm willing and able to provide that information. So we've offered that from the start, and we've been consistent on our end with the message from the start. But if there needs to be more communication with the residents, by all means, happy to do it.
Yeah, and then just two other things that I want to comment on. So, and I hear everybody's frustration and I hear everybody's concern, and I understand. I mean, this is your wallet and these are your finances, and this is serious. But just one thing that I want to highlight, because I heard a lot of comments about, the township's assets, and the township is going to own this. The township assets are resident assets. So ultimately what's benefiting, nobody from the township gains extra benefit from having this water main. So, I don't want the sense to be that somehow we're, the township is profiting off of this or isn't somehow using this as a money generating project, because that's certainly, and if that's the feeling, and again, that's why I go back to the communication, if that's what you're feeling and that's the way that it's been communicated to you, I just think that that's false. And the one other thing I want to touch on is when people are talking about the value of their home, I understand that you're thinking of it as far as what you're going to come out of pocket, but to me, what I look at is a neighborhood that has a malfunctioning water system, and that's just unacceptable. I mean, somebody made a comment about coming from, another country and thinking about a community in the United States without water. I mean, that's just unconscionable to me. So ultimately, the value in having that clean water on demand, it's priceless. And I understand that we're putting a price on it, but I don't want to lose sight of the fact that this will ultimately benefit the community and every single household there. And, getting there is obviously what we're working on now. But really the only thing that I would ask is just, when we say we don't know where South Bloomfield Highland residents are getting their information from, they should be getting it from the township, and the information should be accurate, it should be consistent, and nobody should be confused about what they're hearing or what's going on with the project. So because we got a spreadsheet of all the projects, all the water and sewer projects that we've had in the township going back to, I don't know how many decades. And from what I could tell on that spreadsheet, every project was paid for by that neighborhood. And I just want to be sure that what I'm hearing from the residents matches with what I'm seeing in the spreadsheet. And just one other comment that I'll make, when you talk about in the 60s, them hooking up to the village, that really didn't have a cost for that. I mean, when you say they had to hook up, I mean, the system was already there and running, and they essentially just connected that water source that they had in Detroit and started running it through those pipes that were already there.
Correct.
So then the cost that the township took on came later when it was redone in 2017, and that's where we talk about for 50 years,
yes,
that community was paying into the system from the 60s when they were hooked up. At that time really was no cost to get hooked up because they had those pipes that were still usable for 50 years.
Correct.
Okay. That's all I have for now. Thank you.
Chris?
I'm going to be
Let's go down the row.
Yeah, I'm going to be like a lot of people. I'm probably going to have to come around, but I have a few. So first, I'm going to go through a couple questions that were specifically emailed to us and the board from some of the residents here that we're talking about. One of the frustrations were finding the stop boxes and the township's response to that. So I know D'Angelo Brother was hired in conjunction with the HOA to help find stop boxes that the HOA was not able to find, is my understanding.
Correct.
They had determined that there was issues at certain times and had reached out to the township to provide some support and help. Did we, and how much time did we do to help them?
Yeah, Chris, the going into this project and the design phase of this project, and because it's a privately owned and operated and maintained system by the HOA, the township had zero records with respect to the location of the existing stop boxes. We made it known for the benefit of the project, for the benefit of the residents, in identifying the locations, the proposed locations of the new stop box, it would be imperative that the HOA provided that information, whether it's they located themselves, which is part of the discussion early on with the HOA board members, and they were pretty, I guess, I don't want to say adamant, but made mention that they could locate the stop boxes, they could do that. They got into it and realized, boy, this is a lot more challenging. Well, with the ESD and HRC's direction to expedite this process, it was imperative that a better effort was being made. The township couldn't go out and allocate resources to go find all of the stop boxes. The HOA took it upon themselves to reach out to contractors to locate the stop boxes they could. That was an agreement through the HOA. There was collaboration with ESD and DPW with their contractor. D'Angelo's our emergency contractor. We've got a great relationship with them. And what happened was D'Angelo struggled to find some of these stop boxes that were out there, roughly half of them. But because D'Angelo was making progress and coordinating with ESD and DPW, we allocated our staff to go out, okay, look for the stop boxes that are not being located or can't be located by D'Angelo. Our staff, with a combined staff hours, was roughly 110 plus or minus, and I would venture to guess it was more, right, than 110. But they located almost half, I think it was 105 stop boxes, such that D'Angelo didn't have to spend time searching for those remaining stop boxes. So it actually worked out quite well for both parties. Because we can do that, we've identified, and I know Paul Pallas, our asset management coordinator, spent time out talking to residents and explaining to them their situations, where their existing service lines are located, what they should be planning on doing, whether it's installing a new service line or potentially utilizing their existing service line. But the concept is that our new stop box location is going to be situated here such that HRC and their surveyors can go out and tie those in and put those on the project, or I'm sorry, on the plans for bidding purposes. That allows the contractor to bid each location and how many dig-ups at the main are going to be required to make those connections for the new stop box locations that tie into the existing, should the homeowner opt to use their existing water service line.
Okay. So after hearing from the residents about helping, and you came to the board, the township allocated 110 plus or minus staff hours, to the project. And did we bill them for that?
Negative, no.
So so the township just took that on over a week?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it was probably a 2.5 week period of doing that in order to get our plans submitted submitted for advertisement.
Okay.
May I piggyback on that for one? So every water system has somebody who oversees it as a water superintendent. Did the water superintendent, or whatever title of whoever ran that system, not have any knowledge to help us in this process of where stop boxes could have been when they tied into their own system?
Yeah, I don't think, I mean, in a 80 to 100-year-old system, Dani, I don't know
there wouldn't be records.
Yeah, I don't know that they had that information.
Why don't we start there?
Yeah, I can imagine a system with remodeling, additions, different phases of that subdivision. It was probably quite a cumbersome workload to find all those.
Yeah, It was a daunting task, to say the least.
So Jim had mentioned specifically regarding different areas of the township where we had taken over these well systems. Angie had nicely put together all of the different SADs and water SADs that we looked at, which also does include East Bloomfield Highlands, which is a neighbor of yours, and the neighborhood which they did do a SAD specifically for water. So it shows that even your own neighbors, very close that touch your same subdivision, did pay for a SAD. But they specifically pointed out, I think, 3 or 4. I'm curious, do we know about either the Hickory Grove or the Hickory Heights well system? I was trying to find it in some of the records. Do you happen to know it? I know I'm asking you to memorize every SAD the township has ever done, and that's not exactly reasonable. That one has come up before the Hickory Heights one, and I'm trying to know about that one. Because that might be more
Hickory
comparable.
Heights was another subdivision like Bloomfield Village that had a private community well system in place early on, and when Detroit Water and Sewer came through, they were one of the subdivisions like Bloomfield Village that opted to tie into Detroit Water and Sewer. So very similar case.
I guess actually, now that you're bringing that up, because some of the comments that we did hear is them, the residents are saying we've been paying into the sewer system, and some of us that don't have meters, we could potentially be overpaying, which I'll add, I mean, we don't know for sure since it's not metered, you could be underpaying too, right? You just don't know until you have that meter. But
Hold on. Just
really the point that I'm trying to make is that the question rather is, if they've been paying into the sewer system, then does that, how is that compared to what you're talking about now with Detroit taking them over, the people were paying into the system for all those decades?
There's no.
Okay. Well,
because they're paying into the sewer,
that was one of my
water.
questions I was going to have was, I know everybody said they've been paying into the sewer system, and that should be revenue for the township, but sewer, just like water, is a pass-through cost. So we don't keep and we don't make anything on water or sewer. They literally pass through us. Our expenses are all based on infrastructure, repair, staff, when you have a burst coming out and fixing it, like you guys, I know, do too often. But we don't make any money on water or sewer. That is strictly passes right through us and goes to the county or the water.
Any money we make goes back into the system, I think, is on a year where there's not much rain and people are using more water, that money then gets put in for infrastructure. It's not like it gets shifted over and put into the general fund.
Right, and then we have a minimum reserve level, which we look to set the rate, just like last year, where we didn't raise it as much as our suppliers, so we can offset some of that there. As well, by ordinance, the sewer-only charges are based on a township average. So theoretically, half are paying the average, an average is set, we're in the middle. So half are paying less, half are paying more. So you have to know a lot about your usage before you get that secondary meter or that sewer-only meter, because if you do consume more than the township average, you'll be paying more when you put that meter in. And indeed, a lot of people, if you don't irrigate and that type of stuff, you will be paying less likely, because that average is based on a high irrigation level within the township. So there is a good possibility that you may be paying less, but if you're a high irrigator, I'd definitely look at your usage patterns and know a lot about your usage before you make the leap of putting in a meter, because you may end up paying more. But it is based on the average, and that's without other data on consumption, the average is the best thing, and per ordinance what we go on. So our sewer fees, again, like Val was referencing, they are set to meet the costs that we project in a given year. They're not set to make revenue. Weather impacts water use, and so if we do have a revenue surplus, then we look to put that into the system the next following year and look for a rate reduction to offset that.
Or help cover a year like this year where we've had enough rain, even if it's just an hour a day, you don't see as much irrigation, so we'll undersell the water we had planned for operations.
Right. Yeah, it's highly weather dependent because of our irrigation basis.
So essentially, I guess what I'm hearing then is we only really take into account the water fees when we talk about paying into the system, not for sewer.
Correct. They are a separate rate, and they separately fund the upkeep of each of the separate systems. We have several thousand people in the township that don't are available, and we also have several thousand people that don't have water available to them as well. And those are not, you can have water like your case and not have sewer. So there's a lot of these cases out here, and that would be the breadth, of the issue. If you start funding an SAD, then I think you have an obligation to fund some of those other ones out there. And we've got failed septics and things like that going on.
And that's what might happen to some of us that are well and septic still in the Southwest. When I have to check in and tap in, I'll have to pay whatever that cost would have been had I done it back then. So like when you were saying, the developer pays ahead, but once I need it, we have to pay. So once my well goes out, my personal well, I will then pay that large cost to get onto the system because it was already prepaid.
So my last follow-up question on that then is the system that the township took over, that like the Hickory Grove, the one that Trustee Kalinsky was just asking about, that one would have been water and sewer, and that's why there was a credit towards paying into the system? Again, I just want to make sure that I'm understanding the distinction, and I think that's where we're losing some people.
So I was around when the Hickory Heights subdivision went in. That was in 2005, 2006. We only replaced the water main at that time, but those residents had been connected to the water system since the late 60s and had been paying into the water fund. We didn't do any sewer work, so none of their sewer costs went to that project. It was just the water side that went into that replacement project.
Okay.
So there's only one area where it's combined water sewer system in the village, really. There's nowhere outside of the village. Stormwater. That's stormwater.
That's stormwater. No,
Sorry.
there's no.
So when people
combined
say,
water sewer.
Well, because some people say you have a combined system, and that combined system is not our sewer, our sanitary sewer.
Right. That's it's sanitary and storm combined in one pipe.
So paying into each asset, and that word asset is very misleading. I have to tell you, that was something I had to get used to too. It's not asset that's great to have, it's an asset that you have to keep paying to fix. So it's a strange term that can be misleading as well. Just in case of communication for future, that was something that we had to learn as well on the board.
And I think maybe, and I agree with the use of the word asset sounds funny, and like you're saying, if I pay for those pipes and I own those pipes, but I think you have to look at it similar to the road paving. If your roads are worn out and you try and sell your house, it's a huge negative. If you've just put new roads in, it's a huge positive. Again, there's going to be that SAD that's going to be lingering there if it isn't paid off. that's a trade-off. So new roads are kind of an asset. To be able to say, we used to have this well that was antiquated and lead and all these issues, and 5 years ago, we put in this whole new water system, one of the newest in the whole township. That is going to certainly be an asset and advantage to if you needed to sell in the future, because that's a huge upgrade to your system. But I agree, the word asset comes out kind of funny in this.
Yeah. I was just asking too if earlier it was said that, with roads, it does transfer with the house. I was just asking, does water transfer with the house?
Any SAD will be transferred to the new owner, which was portrayed as kind of a drawback. It's actually a positive, because prior to that legislation, and Darren, correct me if I'm wrong, prior to that legislation, if you were going to sell your house and there was an existing SAD, the entire balance of your unpaid SAD portion would be part of the closing costs that would be taken right off the sale. So this allows the transfer of the property to continue with the SAD financing to the new owners. So it's really kind of a benefit to the seller of the property as well as the
Well, and that, I got caught by that change because when we did our roads in the late 80s, it was under the old system.
Yep.
And then the interest rates were extremely high. So when they came down, we decided to refinance because it made a lot of sense. And we were told by the mortgage company that we wouldn't have to pay off that SAD at 6% on our roads. And interest rates were about 8.5% back then, which was good, actually, compared to what we had started with. By the time we got done with all of it, though, they said, oh, we made a mistake. The mortgage wants to be number one, so you have to pay off that road paving 6%, but we'll loan you that money at 8.5%. So I lived through that as a young homeowner, and I can tell you that was the way it was, but this new, the new system is much better now, because if it's a 20-year payout and you're here 2 years, you would only pay 2 years of it. So, and it lessens the burden, too, by spreading it out.
Chris?
So I would like to just circle back to the Hickory Heights one. So the Hickory Heights one, similar to the Bloomfield Village one, just happened to be about 50 years later. So those residents in Hickory Heights were paying into the water fund on their community well. Is that correct?
No, it was no longer a community well after they connected to Detroit.
So
the community wells were abandoned back when they connected back in the late 60s.
Like right now, when they pay, it doesn't come to us, it goes to whoever is funding and paying for their system.
So when we took over that system, that was from, who had control of their system?
It was a private community well. I believe, I wasn't around in the 60s, but I believe DWSD took it over for several years, and then the township took it over at that point, and they all became township water customers and started paying a township water bill at that time.
So even though it was a community well, they were paying township water bills, and then when they transferred over to our system, that was still a township asset that they had paid into for all that time. Is that correct?
Once they started paying us, it's no longer a community well.
So
once they started paying us,
once they connected to Detroit, there was no longer a community well system. Those wells were shut down. It was everything. All of the water was coming from the new Detroit system that had been extended up to Bloomfield Township.
And in what year did that connection happen?
I do not know that.
So what happened in 2005 that we were referencing? That's I'm trying.
In 2005 was when the township started doing capital improvement plans for all of their water systems throughout the township. So you sold a series of bonds to replace aging and undersized water mains that were part of your system. So that was a capital improvement project on your system.
So Hickory Heights was taken over in the 60s, not in 2005.
Correct.
So this wasn't a new system. It was similar to Bloomfield Village that it was taken over during that time when it was a viable asset with viable time left on that system.
Correct.
We just started replacing the piping in 2005 in that area versus 2017 in the village, correct? So again, during that entire time, they were continuing to pay into our water system as part of our depreciation, asset management, et cetera, and that is where we were able to get the funds to replace their system. Is that all correct?
That's correct.
Perfect.
So, and just to kind of close this loop then, so in 50, 60 years, whenever South Bloomfield Highlands water pipes need to be replaced, those residents will not be responsible for replacing those. The township will be responsible because now we're saying they've paid into the water system for these 5 decades or whatever it is, and now the township has it taken over. I just want to make sure that I'm
It
understanding.
will be a township asset and will be cared for. They, now, I will say, they will be paying rates,
Right,
so they
right.
will indirectly pay.
And so technically, they are buying the asset, but then the benefit, I guess, is that the township starts to maintain the asset, which the cost of that maintenance is very high, and certainly the community would not want to have to take that on, because then that's going to be way more than what they would be paying to install it.
Right, and any water quality issues, any new regulations that come about would be our responsibility to address as well.
So, I don't want to continue to go back to this, but Jim had mentioned the three that I wrote down was Bloomfield Village, Hickory Heights, and then he mentioned Bloomfield Boulevard. There was a township-installed water system at no cost. According to the records that Angie put together, it appears that SAD number 237, which was for East Bloomfield Highlands, included Bloomfield Boulevard and was a water SAD. So again, the information that you did all your, and provided to us shows that that system as well was a SAD and was paid for by those customers, correct?
Yes.
Perfect. So the only other question I have, and I'm sorry, this one is probably going to be for Corey. So at one time, there has been discussion about this using township funds to replace private water systems. So one of the residents had talked about the cost associated with going from that stop box to their house. That cost burden is expensive for them. One person said $7,500 or $10,000 because of the length. That is private. That's a private part of the system. No developer or homeowner or builder, that is passed on to the consumer. However that's paid for, whether it's included in the price of the home or an add-on. But that is a cost that the homeowner will always incur. The township is not allowed to spend money on private systems. That is against the law, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct?
Yes.
So the only time a township is allowed to replace those is if there's lead pipe. Is that correct?
Yes, that's mandated by the state.
So mandated by the state. So the state would then determine based on what type of lead is in that pipe or the levels of it is when we're allowed to use township funds.
Yep.
Not levels of lead in the water, but a lead pipe.
Correct, and they would determine it, and then at that point, we're allowed to. So it doesn't matter how much lead we find in their water, which we're doing now, for safety.
They are doing that.
They are, excuse me, because that is a private system.
Yep.
They are finding, which was 0.12, and as soon as we get to 0.15 is when we have an issue and have to report it, correct?
Well, it's
parts per million.
They're at 13, but it's going down to 12, so they're already at.
It's becoming, yes, the state is becoming more stringent on the
water safety.
Water safety and the how do you say that, the lead detection in the water that's sampled.
And again, lead in the water is different than lead pipes. So a township is not allowed to spend money on private systems except for that asterisk associated with the lead pipe.
If it's a lead pipe or galvanized pipe previously connected to lead, as discovered, whether it's discovered by the homeowner, the plumber, our contractor, the township will pick up that expense of replacing that service line from the stop box to the meter at the township's expense as required or mandated by the state.
Perfect. Thank you.
Michael?
Sure. Corey, this contract that's proposed is for $3.7 million.
Correct.
I was under the impression that the SAD total cost was going to be about $8 million.
Yep.
Where's the rest of it?
Sorry.
So that would lower the cost to each of them.
So the engineer's estimate of probable cost for construction, oh, good Lord, did I get that? Here it is, okay, sorry. The total cost, the engineer's opinion of probable cost was, I thought it was 7.9 million?
Yeah, the one that went into the petition was about 7.9 million. That was before we started any design.
So what was included in that 7.9?
That included the construction costs, the design engineering costs, construction engineering costs.
Hold on. Design engineering and construction engineering.
It also included contingencies. And we also included the previous engineering director's request an inflation factor, because we put that estimate together when there were still pretty wild fluctuations in costs and supply because of the pandemic.
Okay.
So we put that factor in there too. Basically, we didn't want to come in low on the petition.
Sure.
So we had that in there, and then when we got into design, and we had other contingencies in there that, we didn't know what we were going to find until we got survey done. We didn't know if we were going to have to relocate other utilities. We had a lot of unknowns until we got into design. So
of that 7.9, how much was budgeted for construction?
5.38.
5.3. So we budgeted 5.3, and now it's coming in at 3.7.
3.8, yeah.
Well, 3.7, 3.8.
769.
Okay. So, all right. So now we're 1.6 million lower than we thought. So that's good news. Okay. Do we know where we're at on the design engineering?
We're going to probably end up, I think we had about 300,000 budgeted for that. We're going to be right around there, maybe a little bit under.
Okay. What about the construction engineering?
We have not gotten an approved proposal for that, but we're about 450 to 500,000 for that.
Okay. And then we're allowing, how much are we budgeting for contingencies, knowing that we're being asked tonight to give authority to the township supervisor to approve up to 30% in contract increase? How much is being budgeted?
Let me see.
Originally, it was 20, and the part of the 8 million, it was 20, but
Then we knocked it down to, I think, 10% contingencies.
It's
now that
10%.
So we're budgeting 10% of the 3.7.
Of the 3.7, yes.
Okay, so let's just call it 400, but it's less, more like 370. Okay, and then there is no inflation factor, that was a fudge.
Yeah, that was, again, we didn't want the petition to be the low estimate on this, because we understood people were planning and looking at that number.
All right, so I'm looking at about 5 million. I did the math correctly? You guys are the engineers? I'm just the finance guy.
Yeah, that's close, 5.1.
Okay. All right, so that's better news. Okay. Corey, several residents referred to discussion in 1969 with Homer Case about that they could connect at any time for free. And that would be similar, I assume, to the way it was done with the Village and with Hickory Heights. So why, 55 years later, are we talking about this? Why wasn't it connected sooner?
Well, again, having a comment on something, or discussion that was happened or took place back in the 70s. I mean, that might be a question for the HOA and why they opted not to make the connection there back in the 60s. I believe, I don't know this to be 100% accurate or true, that there were a couple different opportunities, and most recent, I believe, in the 90s, for the HOA to be connected, to which that was declined. Maybe it was an SAD that was proposed back then that was declined. I don't know exactly the exact history of what took place way back then.
So, okay, so then why are we talking about it now in 2024? Could we talk about it next year or the year after?
So there's the HOA expressed an urgency to the township because of their existing failing system. They were having issues a year ago with their generators that are needed for to accommodate the emergency if they lose power to continue to provide water. I think that was something that they putting good money towards a bad utility is not something I don't think anybody wants to do. But it's obviously a necessity that they keep that system running. The challenge that the township has with making a connection to our existing system is that you're tying into a failing system, essentially. The township then takes on that liability as far as main breaks or any issues, any water quality issues that are any pressure issues, the hydrants, the gates, and instantaneously you're now responsible for that liability once you make that connection. There's also the safety aspect, and more importantly, is exactly that. In connecting to that system, what does that do for the surrounding areas within the township the water does supply water to? Further is to even propose that, it would still need to go through Eagle permitting, to which I don't want to speak for Eagle, but I don't believe that they'd be in favor of. And essentially, Michael, that starts the process all over again.
Yeah. And so, I mean, and that kind of leads us down to the point that we've arrived at, which is why we've gone down that road.
Yeah.
All right, so just a couple comments. So as a board member, I can only rely on the information that's provided to me by staff and by the institutional memory of the staff that we have, of the records that we keep, and everything that we do from road replacements to water and sewer replacements are done through a special assessment process. And that's the information that's been provided to us, which is why we have pushed this project down the special assessment process to maintain, to be consistent with how we've treated all other things. I mean, we've got a road project going on right now in the village, same thing. They don't own the roads, we don't own the roads. The county owns the roads, but they're paying for the roads. And because they want new roads, because the roads are impassable. And they've gone through the special assessment process. But I also want to say that your concerns and your pleas are not falling on deaf ears. The township administration, myself, the supervisor, the clerk, we've had several meetings talking about other funding opportunities that we could go for to try to find a resolution for this that satisfies the consistency of the special assessment process, but at the same time finds potential other revenue sources. And so I don't want to get into too much detail because we don't have anything to share at this point, but rest assured we've talked to our federal legislators, we've talked to our state legislators, we've talked to our county legislators, and we have been working on this. And so we understand you, we hear you, and we understand the plight that we're all in at this point. So hopefully, you know, with some luck, we'll have better news to report. But right now, I don't have anything.
Martin, do you have any questions?
I do. I have a couple questions. But I want to reiterate, Michael, what you said is, I think, spot on. I don't really have anything else to add. I mean, it's wonderfully said, and I agree with that. Sentiments also of other board members, too. And thank you, township team and our HRC folks for working on this as well and expediting the process. And we've heard from the residents of South Bloomfield Highlands now, many times, and it's certainly sinking in for me. And I'm, and I think it couldn't help but sink in for everybody how difficult a situation this is. So, can I follow up a little bit on what Michael was saying? If it's now $5 million instead of $7.9 million, do we have an estimate of what the per house cost is changed to?
I just did the math on that. It's about $24,800 if you divide that out.
Instead of?
And because we were hearing 30 and 40,000, and not that 24,000 isn't a lot of money.
So, and it's not per house; it's per unit of benefit.
Well,
unit of benefit.
they all have one unit.
It's per homeowner. So that's a little better than, and the fact that we also clarified that the tax roll won't be affected for 18 months, so.
So are we on the right track here? I mean, is this thumbnail the right, I mean,
It's in the ballpark, yes.
okay. That's a significant difference.
It's, our bids came in great, and we got a good contractor too, so.
So we just opened the bids, a week or so ago. We're entertaining a bid today, which does look really quite unexpectedly good. We've been seeing a lot of bids on different things, and it's we do try to, I know that the professionals are trying to do exactly what you did, which is to plan for the possibility that we don't want to surprise anyone on the top side. But, a lot of them are coming in and they're just really tight. And this one is a great surprise in the positive way. How long do we have to accept this bid? And once we do, how long do we have to change our mind? One of the requests I heard was just delay for 90 days. If we want to entertain that, what would we do? Can we delay accepting this bid to the next meeting if we wanted to?
Well, yeah, I mean, the board can, I don't know that there's any added benefit because the clock starts for the acceptance of the bid once the bids are accepted, and I believe.
What is the clock?
We had a 60-day hold period in the bids, so after 60 days, the contractor no longer needs to hold, is required to hold.
The time they submitted, not the time we accept.
Time we opened?
The time they submitted, the time we opened, yes.
Time we opened. We have 60 days. They're obligated to honor that price for 60 days. We have 60 days to accept it, which we could theoretically push it back another meeting if we wanted to, without jeopardizing this number.
Well, we have that, but we do have to have public hearings in those things. We just can't.
So the next meeting, we're not doing the public hearing the next meeting. It's the one after. It's the 2nd September.
September 23rd.
So we have intervening meeting between the public hearing on accepting this.
As long as we have time to notice.
Yeah. So this accepting the bid, Martin, is not approving the SAD.
Correct.
It's accepting the contractor at these unit prices. As we said, very favorable unit prices, an excellent contractor. The board would be accepting this contractor for this contract for this. The public hearing is scheduled for September 23rd, at which point the board would be opting to proceed with the SAD or not. Okay? So based on...
By awarding this contract today, by the way, we're not... If the board on the 2nd September meeting doesn't approve the SAD, we're not bound by this decision today.
We would not get the contract signed until after that public hearing, and the board opted to move forward with the project. So
right, like if a
Supervisor
homeowner
Walsh
says
is the one that
no,
signs those contracts, and we would hold the contracts until
Correct.
Right, if
after
the
that.
whole room
That's
comes
good to
and
know.
says no like they did, we could vote no, and then they would just kind of start over again with a new RFP, with a new bid whenever
Correct.
they're ready. And
The process starts.
It seems to me pretty likely that now that everyone has seen what the bids come in at, they'll just be a little sharper on getting more profit for themselves. I mean, if we delayed on this bid, didn't accept this bid, that's just my
Is the
thought. but-
RFP still open right now, or are we still
No.
accepting bids?
no, we opened bids, which means it's shut, we opened them, and then the clock starts.
So there's no benefit to us waiting because we're not going to get a better
Well, the
bid at
benefit
this
is
point.
we had a request to, delay 90 days. The question is, can we and still protect this bid? The answer I've heard is yes, we can.
60 days.
60 days.
No,
Yeah.
we can delay accepting it now, and then the 60 days would start at the next meeting.
No, it
which
starts
the
the
60
day
days
we
started
opened it.
last
The day
Tuesday when
opened
we
it.
opened the bids.
Yeah.
So August 20th.
The clock already started.
The clock started.
Okay.
Yes.
So just so I'm clear, there's a 60-day hold period from when we open the bid, and that's the fullest extent of time that we have to decide whether to accept it. And that means we have to act on the SAD within that 60-day period to know whether or not we're going to sign that contract.
Correct.
And today, we're only authorizing it to be signed, not, it's
Authorizing the
subject
public
to
hearing?
the public hearing, right?
Correct. Yeah, we would not sign the contract until after that public hearing.
And I heard, we talked about I think there's one other subdivision, or maybe two, that was mentioned that I don't think we've talked about, that I want to cover. I thought I heard Square Lake mentioned as a place where
So there was
water was put in without...
There was a subdivision, again, this was after Hickory Heights, before the village, Colberry Park it was called, or Colberry Hills. It's right at Square Lake and Woodward. And that was another one. I believe it was a community well system back in the 60s. It connected over to the DWSD system. When that came through, they were township water customers for all those years, and then that was part of that capital improvement project that the township replaced those mains.
Okay, great. And then Hickory Grove, is that different from Hickory Heights? Did I also hear Hickory Grove?
I am not sure what Hickory Grove is. I'm not familiar with that one.
Telegraph and Hickory Grove.
Telegraph and Hickory Grove? Oh.
Square Lake.
Do you know of any projects?
I'm not familiar with any projects in that area.
Do any of you have access to that Excel sheet that you showed us
Right
at our
now.
last meeting that you could see if it's on that list?
Grambling Way, Barville,
Yeah, we're just asking questions here right now. Well, thank you. I guess
So he's looking on.
So the only other thing I would just ask, if we can break down now, so we're hearing that the bid came in under what we thought it would be, so the assessment to each home is going to be around $25,000. So can you just describe, like, do you have to pay that $25,000? How does that work? If we can just talk about that process. And then we heard that they have to pay the connection fee now, which for some residents sounds like can be, up to $10,000. Are there additional fees aside from the connection fee and the SAD assessment for each unit of benefit?
Okay, I'm going to defer the SAD-related question to Jen.
Okay.
And then I'll cover the private connection charges.
Thanks.
Okay, so in regards to the $25,000 or whatever the final amount ends up being, again, that would not take place until the winter 2025 tax bill. It's split across the 20 years.
So you have 20 years to pay the $25,000?
That's correct.
Okay.
Beginning
next winter?
2025 winter tax bill.
That's
Okay.
As long as the project is completed by then.
No, it's when we sell the bonds.
Significant.
It's based on bond sale?
Okay.
And so, but before December 2025, next year, when that $25,000 bill is going to come, and they have the option to either pay it up front or pay it over a 20-year period.
That's correct.
What other costs are there?
That's it. It's all rolled into
For the
one
SAD,
payment.
okay.
Correct.
None for...
The bond rate.
But they pay their own personal connection fee.
Correct.
And the timeline they have to do that is by when?
So the project is going to be broken down into phases. And when the water main is installed, once the water main is installed, the service lines are installed to the property line. Even before then, it's our intent to provide advanced notification to all the residents of when they're going to be, the anticipated phasing is going to take place, okay? So once the water main is installed, a 90-day countdown begins for the resident to make that connection, that service connection. So over the course of construction, whether it's whether we start October, November, or spring next year, whenever the contractor, there's a lot going on here, Stephanie, with scheduling.
Sure.
So part of this, and I don't want to alarm anybody that construction is going to begin October 14. I'm just saying it's potentially could start then. The contractor may say, you know what, we can get this project done from spring of 2025 through October 2025, and we have no problem doing that. But through that phasing process, as soon as that segment is installed and pressurized and treated and ready to be connected, they are going to give that or be given that notice that their plumbing can come out and make a connection to that service line. They've got 90 days to do that. The reason why we, in discussion with the board, established that 90-day period is to incentivize the residents to make that connection to the new main. The longer this project delays or is held up by residents who do not connect, the longer the HOA has to maintain the existing water distribution system. The decommissioning, as we said, of the well system and abandonment of the water distribution system is included in the contract. That deadline is, what do we say, April of 2026. If that is extended for reasons that residents do not or have not connected to the new water distribution system, that delays the decommissioning of that and potentially adding cost to the SAD. That discussion was had months ago with the HOA, and they're in agreement that we should expedite this and give them the 90-day, the residents, the 90-day notice. That's not 90 days from now or 90 days from 3 months ago. That's 90 days from the point that that water main is installed. Residents, and because the township can't allocate funds to private property, work on private property, residents will be obligated to make that physical connection from their homes to the new system. Again, they can opt to utilize their existing water service line. In some cases, they don't have that option because of existing rear yard mains, because of the location of or proximity of the existing service lines. They may not have that option. Our staff has had conversations with several of the property owners in those cases out in the subdivision or at their homes or phone. So we've been in communication with a lot. We understand and we have record of what's out there and what's going to be needed on their behalf. And we'll still continue once the process moves forward, should it move forward and be approved. It's our intent to let them know what that phasing is, what that's going to look like. What the township does not have is available plumbers, and nor will we recommend a plumber to do this work. It's a conflict of interest, basically. And so we've left it up to the HOA and the residents to find their own plumbers. But we've always encouraged them to get multiple quotes to get this work done, whether it's, and again, the reference of a checklist letter was emailed out to the residents in August, earlier this month rather, that identified kind of a list of suggested questions for the residents to ask their plumbers when that plumber, or when they're getting quotes from plumbing contractors. That expense will be, whatever they choose or decide to do, or whatever they have to do, will be an addition in addition to the cost that they have to incur for this project.
Okay.
And just to be clear, I've heard it mentioned a connection fee. It's not our fee. There's no fee we're charging to connect.
Correct.
Like it's someone who has
It's
an
not a
individual
fee
well that
in
they
addition
can't-
to the project. It's a cost that they have to
Their own
hire a contractor, a plumbing
infrastructure.
contractor, to perform this work.
I would have
Now,
to do the same.
a permit will be required. Their plumbing contractor will obtain a permit through the building department. There's no cost or charge for the permits. The board has made that decision months ago.
And my
But they
understanding
still-
is that typically the township does not waive that fee. So in the other projects where there have been SADs to replace the water system, the permit fee was not waived.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that,
Okay.
Stephanie, but I don't.
But in this case, we are
in
gonna waive
this
it.
case, the board has opted to waive that permit fee.
Okay.
I think the example she was using is if we had installed a system and like Supervisor Walsh was talking about, if she had to connect to that water system, not only would she have to pay the tap fee, she had to pay a permit fee for it.
Yeah, when I actually have to tap in, I will have to pay the permit.
Even though the system was already put in place, we're not going to waive that. So somebody else is they would have to pay for a permit fee. If somebody has a service line replaced and has to get a permit, they have to pay a permit fee for it.
Correct.
In this case, they're not paying any permit fees. The board has decided that they will not incur that cost.
Correct.
And if the homeowner could show that the pipes that they do have currently leading out of their house that could connect, if they could show that they were safe, then they wouldn't have to be replaced.
Yeah, that's, Stephanie, that's, I guess, in speaking with some of the HOA, there's bypass lines that were allowed with that system. So meaning that if there's a spigot on the side of the house or an irrigation system, they were afforded the option of making a bypass connection, right? So what that, in our concern, and in the I guess in line of with safety and water quality, is to avoid any potential for cross-contamination. That's a major concern on our end. And connecting to or tying into an existing system, that's one of the things that we're very adamant about, is not providing a situation where there's potential for cross-contamination. So when we say that their plumbing contractor has to in order for them to utilize their existing service line, their plumbing contractor should verify that there is no evidence, either bypass line or cross-contamination.
And that's because we have to protect the water system that provides water to all of the township residents.
That's correct,
Okay.
in its entirety, correct.
Okay. So they have to pay the connection fees, and it sounds like really
No, there's no connection fee.
Right,
They have
I'm
to pay a plumber to make the connection.
To make the connection,
Right.
exactly. And I'm just calling it connection fee, but right, they're paying the plumber to make the connection. They need to pay that now.
Correct.
And is there any other fee or anything else that the residents have to do?
Well, it all depends on their internal infrastructure on their house and the private homes.
See, that's what kind of concerns me, because then, and I understand, like, this is also hard for the township because you have all of these homes. One is unique, but my concern is, how do they figure it out?
Well, yeah, they would, I think, have to hire a plumbing contractor to make that determination. The township, now, DPW has gone in. I think there's roughly 24 locations where DPW has gone out and performed an inspection of their existing service line. We can do that, okay? What we can't do is go through each and every house and offer them concerns. We can say, okay, well, here are a list of things that you might, and that's what we provided earlier this month, is ask about your valves, ask about your internal components. Your pressure is, with an existing fluctuation of whether it's 30 to 70 PSI, depending on the peak demand, to have a consistent 60 to 80 PSI with a new water distribution system, that might add some added stress on your internal plumbing. We have no control over that. Okay, so what we wanted to do is prepare the residents, say, okay, here's some questions you should ask your plumber. Here's some items that are out of our control that you might want to consider going into this project, and just be prepared for. Not that it would happen, but we didn't want to introduce a system, a water distribution system, and have a homeowner connect to it and have all their faucets blow out. Not that that would happen. I mean, that's extreme, right? But at least we gave them, well in advance of the project, that heads up.
And I guess just to that point, the heads up, we gave the checklist in August. I think there needs to be continual follow-up at each, not that like I'm saying we need to micromanage us, but candidly, like maybe someone didn't get that letter or got lost in the mail and now they're behind, or they didn't get the plumber and they're just not ready. I just want to make sure that people have the information they need, and it's easy for them to figure out what they need to do.
Those letters are on their are posted on their website, the South Bloomfield Highlands website. It's posted on, all the correspondence are posted on the township website under construction process or projects. We've, again, attended and will attend any HOA board meeting that they want us to attend.
I know, and Corey, and I hear you, but like there are people that don't go online. There are people that don't go to the meeting. I just want to make sure that we're capturing everybody. I don't want anybody to be surprised. This is already bad enough news as it is. I don't want to make it any harder than it's already been.
Stephanie, I understand.
Yeah,
I get this, and I know that it's for the residents. I'm empathetic and compassionate with this situation for the residents, it's overwhelming. And not only that, there's a large price tag for this project and altogether. So I'm willing to, if there's any additional information that or assistance that the residents want or need, my department is willing to assist and accommodate any way we can.
Yeah, and I don't want to make it seem like, I don't think that you and your department are doing everything that you can. I know how hard everybody's working. I know what a big project this is. But I just, I see all these people here. I hear all of these concerns and these complaints. And so for me as a trustee, I have to advocate on behalf of these people. And this is what I see we could do a little more.
Certainly.
So one thing that we're doing in the village that's 400, because it's 2 different SADs, about 200 in each one. The village manager or the HOA president, I know we have a new one now, but they have emails for the residents. So everything that they give, Kathy then email blasts out to everybody. So a way that the HOA board could help is if they could collect the emails like we do in other SADs, and they help for that person who doesn't get mail, because I have to be honest, I don't check my mailboxes often because not much comes there except junk mail, that email comes quicker. And I know the village, it's been very successful because previously people use Nextdoor or Facebook, which has late algorithms. You might get it 5 days after you needed it. So the email from the HOA in the SAD at the village is working very strongly. Probably the best we've ever had in any SAD since I've been here in 8 years.
Well, one more thing that might help is start interviewing, when it's time, start interviewing your plumbers. And absolutely, I've done this with my sewer hookup and just recently with my son having major plumbing issues. Get at least 3 estimates because they'll be all over the place. And just talking to the person, you'll get a feel for if this person seems to have this experience or this knowledge or your comfort level. And then what I would suggest to Jim in your subdivision is share that information. If you hook up and you have a great experience, share that person. If you hook up and you have an unfortunate experience or it doesn't work out well for you, share and we did this in our subdivision, share a network of the contractors, and you can do this for other things too, like roofs, because we did that in our sub. But especially with this, you might find a better rate if there's plumbers that know, they could come and maybe do 3 or 4 houses, or but it really behooves you to be careful who you hire, check the references, get the quotes, because they will vary considerably, and you want to choose a good plumber and you want to pay a fair rate. And that's unfortunately something we can't facilitate.
I have one thing to piggyback on what Michael said, as well as the whole board has been trying to find ways to help with funding. Tonight is although they're always hard, my friend's brother is here today. An ex-coach is here today. I've lived here 52 years, and I feel for the lady that got emotional. You are people that we know. We have gone out of our way, and we will continue to try and find, and that's why I didn't pick on her for getting emotional, because I am as well. You are not just numbers to us. You are people, and you are our neighbors. We will continue to try and look. If we cannot find something, this is the only thing we could do. We've never been able to waive fees before we did. But I promise you, there's not a person on this board that doesn't have the compassion and feel bad for what is happening to you right now. I apologize, just like the other lady. It is hard to see your fellow neighbors going through this. So please don't think that just because you only see us every 2 weeks, I promise you, every single one of the people here, and Neil, who's not here today, has been not just emailing, but physically coming in, trying to brainstorm, trying to figure this out, because this is more than even a road. Although the roads are frustrating and those are expensive, that's not the life and safety of water for your children and for your fires. So please know that this is important. And I apologize, that's why I wasn't trying to talk today, because I knew I would get like this. But when you see a veteran who's your friend's brother, it really hits home, as well as others. So I apologize this is happening to you. We will continue to try and help, and absolutely communication, 100%. If you need help going door to door, I'll go help get emails with you, because that's 200 houses. I'll help, whatever we can do to help. But please don't think that this is easy to watch what you're going through, and we will continue to try. I know, if especially right now with the county and the state, you're continuing, and I appreciate that. But and I apologize for being blubbery, but this is not something that we enjoy being on this side of. So I apologize for what's going on in your lives right now. Please know that we have compassion for you, and we'll continue to force meetings to try and figure out what we can do.
Absolutely.
I'm sorry.
Dani, I do just want to add, when it comes to being more effective with our communication, we do plan on trying something new with this project that HRC is actually up to us, where when it comes to the construction phase, they make GIS dashboards now that you can integrate onto your website. It's user-friendly and compatible, where even residents of the township, or really anyone in the public, can gain access to. And we can identify when water main is installed in the phases. We can highlight which ones are available to connect to. We can identify which properties have made connections to the system, which have not. So we can kind of in real time almost provide information outside of just letters and email blasts of when is your water main physically available to connect to, and who's connected, who hasn't. I don't know if there's any other capabilities I missed, but I'm sure if there's something thought of, we could think about, there's a way to integrate it into those dashboards that, like I said, are user-friendly. They can be available for the residents to look at, and that's something we haven't done before, but I think it would aid in improving communication.
In addition to that, for those of us who are not all that tech savvy, including myself, we will provide door hangers and leave the traditional letters on your front doors that indicate, okay, here's what we're doing and when we're doing it.
And I'm not sure who then.
The senior citizens do not have computers.
Yep.
A lot of the people in my community don't use.
Yep.
Yeah, and just one other thing I would say, it seems like a close-knit neighborhood, so if you see that your neighbor's not here, if you could share this information, tell them to watch this meeting. If you don't get the answers you're looking for, I'm your trustee, reach out to me. I'm going to help you however I can. So, it's a tough project, but hopefully we'll get through it together.
Well, and Corey, I don't know how you do all the door hangers, who's responsible for that, but I would volunteer to help walk the neighborhood and distribute, if that's of any help.
Our team's fully capable.
I know they're
thank you,
capable,
Val.
but if time is an issue, I'd walk the neighborhood.
I appreciate it, Val. This project in its entirety will be something special, and we're, the ESD, HRC, DPW, we're up for the task.
Yeah.
So I just want to close the loop. So Jim and several residents have asked us to postpone it for 90 days. No matter what we do tonight, if we award the contract or agree with the low bid, that doesn't stop us from postponing it in 30 days or 30 or 90 days. We would just miss out on this bid. But again, if we approve it tonight, that does not obligate any of us to go with this contract or SAD is being approved. That still gives us up until the public meeting, which is September 23rd.
Correct.
For the residents to get either more informed and be okay with the project, or continue to come here in force and say you do not want this project, and the board to respond appropriately.
Right.
But us accepting the low bid tonight does not obligate us to do your SAD. I want to confirm that.
Right. Yes, basically, and I'm sure you two can and also agree as lawyers, that this is just saying that when we go to the public hearing, this is what we're bringing. But if I personally, I can't say what you all would do, if I saw a whole room say I don't want it, I would be voting against it, just that reality is, and then that ends this one and they would start over with the new RFP.
It's their project.
But I 100%, this is something that we need to do what the residents want.
Because
So
then, oops, sorry.
Oh, so technically we would have up to 60 days. If, say, in the 30 days at the hearing, there's still a lot of questions and
Have another hearing,
concerns.
couldn't we, or no?
Could we
have
also,
60 days
if we thought the 30, it
Yeah.
would take us, we could have up to 60 days from
Last Tuesday.
August 20th.
August 20th, before we would risk losing the potential for this low bid, which came in lower than we expected. And so we would have up to that point if we needed that.
Martin had just mentioned, we could do a continuance of that. We don't have to vote. Like if you have everybody who's like, I'm not sure, and this 23rd, we could do a continuance to the next one.
To the next meeting.
Great. Yeah, it's their project,
Right.
Right.
so.
Just might be outside the 60 days, though.
Not to the next
No,
meeting.
it has
one
to
meeting,
be-
not a month. Our next meeting.
It's the second September meeting where we're doing the public hearing. If we
That's
continue
30.
that, will we be on the 60 days?
No.
I don't know.
No.
August
We'll do the next
20th
meeting.
to
Okay.
September 23rd is 33 or 34 days. So then if we
Do it for
went
the
2 more
next.
weeks to our next meeting, we would
You're still
still be
within.
under the 60 days.
Correct.
Great.
So we have a little more room to
Right.
figure this all out, because I know a lot of you put in a lot of passion as someone who's carried petitions in my neighborhood. It's tough, and everybody's never going to agree, but obviously you got more than enough people that really wanted this and understood the concern. So gives you a little bit more time to kind of give it that last thought before you just say, no, we're just not going to proceed, and then you wait 6 months or a year, and this is what happened with the village. Their roads weren't done for 60 years because every time it came up, people said, well, we want it, but we don't want to pay that much. And then 5 years later, they did it again, and the price kept going up and up and up. Their concrete curbs were underground to the point where the project just kept getting worse and more expensive every time they put it off. So that's the downside if you decided to delay.
Well, in addition to that, in addition to adding cost to the project, there's no guarantee that if this project will go out to rebid, that you're going to get favorable unit prices. There is no way to predict the next fire. There's no way to predict the next main break. There is no way to predict a mechanical failure with either your pumping system, your water infrastructure, or any mechanicals or generators that are operating the system. There is no way to predict that. It's something to consider with the age of this existing system. So the township or the ESD, HRC, DPW, we heard the demand, and we expedited this project to get to this point today. And I really need to commend HRC, Karen Stickle, Chris Ross, Noah Mahalski and his team, Craig Lewis,
Angela.
Paul Pallas, and especially Angela Heisinger for their efforts in getting to this point. It's been a team effort from the start, and we'll just wait for your decision.
So unless there's any more questions, I'd look for a
Can I
motion.
see that motion again, please?
Yeah. Can you put the motion back up, please, Sean? Do we want to lower the 30%? Or you guys, that's just the normal one, but it's up to you guys if you want to lower it. It seems like
Only plan for 10, right?
The contingency's at 10.
Yeah. I'm going to be honest, I would probably be bringing it back to you guys anyway.
30 is
Got to that 30%
Well, 30 is
over, I
what
would
we usually
be
do on a water sewer
going crazy.
project. But yeah, up to 30. On normal water sewer projects, we do, like, let's say Long Lake. We open it up and we found a whole bunch of stuff under there, so they always go a little higher. But this is something that if you would like to change that, that's something that's.
Well, what's missing is that from 0 to 10 is, I
Is
assume,
the
ESD. Right, okay, so
Yeah.
that's not up here, so we're just going to add that.
Did I leave that off?
Yeah, so from 0 to 10 is ESD.
Oh, no, it's in the second bullet point.
Oh, there it is.
In the field, increase the cost 10%, the ESD shall do it.
Second line. at
Shall
the end.
obtain
No,
approval
it
from
says
the township
above
supervisor.
10%, the
Yeah, that's-
ESD shall obtain permission.
Yeah, that needs to be corrected. Should the quantities need to complete the project or conditions
Should be
discovered in
up
the
to
field,
10%.
increase the contract cost up to, it should read up to 10%. No, above 10%. So it should include any additional costs. Up to 10% should be at the discretion of ESD based on quantities in the field. Anything above 10%, ESD shall obtain approval from the township supervisor prior to issuing approval of the said contract amount. Up to 30%. If it's above 30%, then we'll obtain permission bring it back to the board.
It's up to you guys. Do we want to change the 30?
What do you suggest?
Well, no, I'm asking you guys, but sometimes it comes up.
We do. We have changed it one occasion I can think of.
We did it for one.
We changed it to 15?
15, I think it is. It's up to you guys.
I think, but was that for a road one? I don't know if that was for, I don't think it was water.
I thought it was Long Lake.
I thought it was Long Lake.
It's usually, I usually don't want a lot of authority above 10%, to be honest. It's a lot of pressure. The only time I think we normally went up to 30 was when it was like Long Lake, or maybe it was the one on, what's the P? It's off of Club Drive.
Porter's Lane.
Porter's Lane.
Porter's, and I think Forest Lake, we might have done that too.
Yeah, it's usually when we don't know what we're getting into. But luckily, we didn't need it on any of those, so.
Just 30% on this project, we're talking about $1 million bucks.
Drop it to 15?
I think that would be my amendment. I would like to make a motion that we adopt this,
I'm
but
okay with
an
that.
amendment to the contract price between 0 and 10%, between 0 and 15% would go to the,
Well, 0 to 10 is
0
you.
to 10 is ESD.
15
and
would be
then
me.
11 to 15 would go to the supervisor. Anything above 15% would go back to the board for approval.
Perfect.
Support.
So motion by trustee
Yeah, so just to be clear for people in the audience, if anybody's confused, so essentially, if we have the project cost now, this is what the bid is. If, while they're doing the work, it comes to be up to 10%, then the department can make the decision on their own to go ahead with that 10% increase. If it's going to be 15% or greater, then it will come back to the board and we will have to vote to accept that higher bid.
And the only time I remember ever it coming between 10 and 15 was one time when Olivia was still here. It hit like 11%. And then there was reasons, but I haven't seen where we've approved over 10 without coming to the board, other than that one.
I think that was on Long Lake Road.
Was that Long Lake?
When we
It
ended
was
up having
so
to,
close.
when we ended up having to replace all of the water main too.
Yeah, we had up to 30 and it was 11%, so I didn't bring
All
it
right,
back
so-
to the board.
There's a motion.
So motion by trustee Kalinsky, support by trustee Murray. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? So that does pass. And then if whoever the new board president, 'cause it's not Jim now, so whoever the new board president is, if they want to get with Corey, we can talk about maybe some other communications that we could do.
Absolutely.
Okay. So next we'll go on to consider the approval of interlocal service agreement with the City of Auburn Hills for emergency water main interconnection.
Don't go anywhere. We got another one. Okay.
And we have Director Almas again.
Yeah, so a little bit of background on this one. Excuse me. HRC performed a redundancy study for the township's water distribution system in 2021. Phase 1 of the study identified the potential projects to improve redundancy in critical areas within the township. Phase 2 is to design and construct projects recommended in Phase 1. The study was geared towards water main in close proximity to critical infrastructure, oil pipelines, Great Lakes Water Authority transmission main, I-75, major roads, railroad crossings, etc. The areas studied were determined how to supply water with a redundant source should a failure occur. So I included this map and what I wanted to do. I know it's difficult to see here, but obviously it's the township as a whole, but there are existing emergency connections with West Bloomfield Township, 7 on that western border of Bloomfield Township. We've got 1 emergency connection with Pontiac in the northwest quadrant. We've got 4 emergency connections with Bloomfield Hills, and what we're proposing is an emergency connection with Auburn Hills in the northeast quadrant of the township. Phase 2 of the redundancy study was initiated in April of 2022 to investigate 2 of the highest priority areas within the township for redundancy improvements. The emergency connection with Auburn Hills was identified as one of those top priorities. Discussions with Auburn Hills about the emergency connection were had regarding the benefit to both communities, and Auburn Hills was in favor of the interlocal connection and informed us that they were planning on a large water main replacement project in 2024 along South Boulevard. The timing for this was perfect. So again, here's the project location. You see outlined in red is Auburn Hills. Here is the connection on South Boulevard. Township is shown there in blue. Well, thanks, Sean. Nicely done. Okay. I can't go to the next slide.
That's crazy lines.
Right.
There we are. So to just zoom in here a little bit, here is this Hunter's Ridge Road Drive? Here's Sheffield Drive. Here's South Boulevard. The connection is going to be made crossing South Boulevard, the north side being Auburn Hills, the south side being Bloomfield Township, and the close proximity to I-75 right there. So again, here's this project scope, and again, the township's portion would be just basically making our connection to here, but our obligation would be the water main installation on our within our township with the installation of one gate valve and well on the south side of South Boulevard. So staff is recommending that the Board of Trustees move to approve the interlocal service agreement between the Charter Township of Bloomfield and the City of Auburn Hills for the emergency water interconnection as described in the agreement and estimated at an estimated project cost of $82,238 and authorize the supervisor to sign the agreement. Legal has reviewed the agreement and funds were budgeted and available for this project. For fiscal 25, I believe.
Are there any questions?
Who's going to be performing the work?
DVM is their contractor that's doing their work. We're very familiar with DVM, but the work will be overseen by our staff, EESD staff, whether it's our project coordinator, Mark Hendricks, or asset management coordinator, Paul Pallas.
Perfect.
Any other questions? If not, I'd look for a motion.
So moved.
Motion by Trustee Murray.
Support.
Support by Trustee Kalinsky. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? That does pass. Next, we have consider adoption of the revised Special Assessment District SAD policy, presented by Deputy Assessor Jennifer Werthman.
Good evening. This should be hopefully relatively quick. You guys will have in your board packets the current suggested amendments to the SAD policy. The bulk of this really just represents our takeover of the majority of the SAD policies from EESD. So you'll note throughout the majority of the policy, it is just kind of clearly representing where EESD previously was, that the assessing department has taken over. There are still intricate parts that EESD handles, such as public water and sanitary sewer. The majority of this, though, again, like I said, takes it from EESD director to our assessing department. The only real changes that are different other than the responsibility of the two departments is we have made some changes. Treasurer Shostak has kind of reworked some of the pricing as far as, or fee schedules, I guess I should say, as far as the township's cost. So towards the back, you'll see under Township Administration and Management, we are proposing to change the percentage that is applied to the township admin and management fee based on the number of parcels in the SAD. So we are proposing a 0 to 49 parcels will experience a 0.5% fee. 50 to 149 parcels will experience a 1% fee, and then 150 plus will experience a 1.5% fee. And that just kind of goes to the administration aspect as far as verifying information on the SAD. The more parcels, obviously, the more management there is to it, administration to it. And then the other change would be towards the back, the financing for the municipal bond costs. We're looking to make that a flat rate fee instead of the 3.5%. So 0 to 5 million will be $125,000. 5 million to 10 million will be a $200,000 cost. 10 million to 15 million would be $275,000, and 15 million to 20 million would be $350,000. questions?
I have a question. So on the 0 to 49 properties, 0.5%, and then it goes up to 1%, 1.5%. I understand that's a bigger project, so the percentage went up. However, if it's a bigger project, it's going to be 2 or 3 times, instead of $1 million project at 0 to 49, say it's going to be like a $2 million project. So 0.5% of $2 million is still going to be double what it was for the smaller group. So it's like the more properties you have, the greater the project cost, the greater the fee that comes in. So I guess I'm not sure, that it's like it's already an increase if you're making double the project, if you're getting 0.5%. It's based on a percent as opposed to a per property or a per project. So, and how does that compare to what we currently do?
So currently it is 0.5% for
Across the
all
board.
projects across the
I guess just the one thing I would note, because I kind of was thinking that originally, but it's a lot more work for the township staff too, because there's a lot more work that has to be done. So I can see, I could justify that higher percentage just based on the amount of work that we know takes from the township staff to do all this
The
work.
larger SADs also require more administrative expenses that we have to disperse, including legal fees. So our legal expenses grow exponentially the larger the projects. And so this is supposed to cover any legal fees that we incur.
But the legal fee proportional, like,
It's not proportional. If you had a small project, you might have very little fees, but a bigger project is going to have exponentially more fees. That's why you have to raise the rate.
Yeah, so again, Treasurer Shostak, this is an additional tax we're trying to add onto our residents.
No.
This is just trying to recoup costs that, as we've been seeing more of these SADs come through, we're actually able to see what the true costs are.
Yes.
And we're trying to just recoup costs, not get additional revenue.
Yes.
So this is just to right-size the cost associated with all of these. Is that correct?
Very much so.
Perfect.
Any other questions? If not, I'd look for a motion.
So moved.
Motion by trustee Kalinsky.
Support.
Support by trustee Faki. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? That does pass. Thank you for all your work on that.
Thank you, guys.
Of course. Too, Michael.
Now you have it officially.
So next we have consider authorizing the addition delinquent Lake Board of Special Assessments, delinquent lighting special assessments, and delinquent ordinance code violations to the township tax rolls, presented by Clerk Brook.
Okay, good evening. This should just take a second. Every year, we consider a resolution such as this. Since the early 2000s, the township, based on a resolution adopted at that time, Township Board is asked to authorize placing unpaid special assessments onto the tax rolls. Township Treasurer's Office, Mr. Shostak, has provided the unpaid assessments for the lighting assessments, SADs, that we have, the Lake Board assessments that are done annually, and code violations that would also be added to the tax rolls for this December, if the board approves.
Any questions for Clerk Brook? No? I'd look for a motion.
motion to approve.
Motion by trustee Murray.
Support.
Support by trustee Kalinsky. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? No opposed. And next we have approved payroll and vouchers for August 26th. Unless there's any changes, I'd look for a motion.
So moved.
Motion by trustee Kalinsky.
Support.
Support by trustee Faki. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? And last one is motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Support.
Motion by Clerk Brooks, support by trustee Murray. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All right, we'll see you at the next one.